The story begins on a day when there was a strong thunderstorm. A guy with a menacing expression sat on a throne and looked forward, straight at a girl who sat on the floor in front of him. With a chain around her neck, she turned to the master and asked if she could ask a question. He asked what question. In response, the girl asked how he was going to kill her. At that moment, the guy froze. He tensed up when he thought about how he had never even thought about killing anyone. He didn't know what to do. He had no idea how he should talk to the girl he loved. It all started that day. The girl loudly begged Mias to stop. With a terrifying smile, the man walked towards the girl while she tried to bring him to his senses. He looked at her and tried to catch her, after which the girl screamed loudly. She hit him in the face, but the man's skin slid down with her hand. She said with horror that he was not Mias. She asked who he was. The next moment, the unknown person cut her clothes. The girl began to cover herself while the unknown person was saying how languid her face was. He apologized and said that he was not going to touch her, because such girls are valuable to magicians. The skin from the face of a living innocent girl is a great catalyst. He told her not to die. The girl started screaming and resisting while the man kept saying that everything would be fine and that she shouldn't worry because once he was done with her face, he would take care of her. Suddenly, someone grabbed him by the head. The master lifted the man into the air while the magician asked in amazement what was going on and who the guy was. The boy said that he should be the one asking that question. He asked how they dared to make noise in his garden. He was almost asleep when they made noise. The magician was scared. He realized that everything was bad because this was that guy's territory. He shouted that they were both magicians, and he could share the results of his research and leave. Blood splashed on the girl's face. Noticing this, the guy panicked a little. The girl lost consciousness and fell to the ground. The boy panicked even more. He tried to calm down because he was a mage and could fix everything. He waved his hand, creating a circle of circulation. In an instant, the blood from the girl's face, as well as the torn dress, began to swirl into a funnel. At the same time, the mask on the wizard's face began to return to its place. He thought he could only restore the blood and flesh, but without clues, the girl might think it was just a dream. He looked at the girl closer and noticed the cross-shaped crest. He assumed she was from the church. False apostles of God are the natural enemies of magicians. Noticing this, he looked calm. He thought it probably didn't matter. This was his territory. There were barriers all around. Detection, amplification, protection, and worse. No ordinary mage could intercept his sigil. Suddenly, someone appeared behind the guy. He looked calm. The guy said that he shouldn't intercept other people's signals on a whim. Barbaros came to him. He greeted his friend Zagan with a broad smile. Barbaros said that the boy was pale as always. Zagan looked at him and thought that Barbaros was talking as if he were their pink baby. Barbaros saw the girl and gasped, thinking that he had interrupted the party. Zagan said that he had gotten rid of the scoundrel who had made noise in his garden. Barbaros smirked and asked if it was Zagan speaking. He said that they were mages, scoundrels by definition, taking the lives of people in pursuit of one goal, to gain more power. Without a trace of guilt, he looked at the girl and said that she was simply overflowing with power. He asked if he would sacrifice her. Zagan said that magical sacrifices were not his specialty. He created a magic circle and transported the girl somewhere. Barbaros said that it was a waste, and if Zagan didn't need her, he could give her to him. The guy told his friend not to kidnap people on his territory, because he would be considered a criminal. Barbaros said he was pleased to hear that, and he would try next time. Zagan got angry and told Barbaros to try, and he wouldn't leave a single stone of his castle. Zagan sighed and said he was going to bed, and if Barbaros had any business with me, they should discuss it later. Barbaros ran after him and said that he shouldn't do that, because he'd come all this way to come to his friend and tell him something interesting. He grinned and said that if Zagan wanted to sleep, he should add some adrenaline to his blood. Zagan said that this is why Barbaros looks like a dead man. Manipulation of the body is the basis of a magician's existence. They are not afraid of illness or imminent death. Barbaros said that for a 1,000-year-old, it was. He added that he brought interesting news. Zagan immediately turned around. Barbaros asked his friend if he had heard about the death of Marcosus, one of the demon lords. Zagan was surprised. Demon lord. The bearer of this title has great power. Those who stand at the cutting edge of magic, and those who can easily subjugate lesser mages to their will. Zagan heard that one of the demon lords had recently passed away. Barbaros put his arm around his friend and noticed how interested he looked. He reminded him that Zagan was going to bed. The guy told Barbaros to stop and get down to business. He asked if Zagan had heard of the city of Keonid, and then said that Marcos Issa had long ago declared it his territory and was now holding an auction there, which would take place today. It will sell legal stuff, as well as their favorite toys. Zagan tensed up and asked if Barbaros meant what he thought. Barbaros exclaimed that this was it. He said that his legacy would be auctioned. More and more people gathered in the city. People of different races, as well as employees, were in the city at the time. Barbaros wanted to say what he was trying to convey to his friend. Zagan said that, in other words, he'd come to borrow money from him. He asked if, in that case, the legacy of Marcosis would belong to him. Barbaros asked why he was doing this, since he was the only one who told the boy about the auction. Zagan told the boy to find someone else. Barbaros exclaimed that no one else would give him money so easily. Besides, Zagan himself could find a woman, maybe even two. Zagan thought about it. It wasn't that he was interested in them. It was just that he thought they would be more of a hindrance. Barbaros continued to beg his friend, so Zagan had to agree. Zagan noted that the city was unusually tense. Barbaros suggested that some fools were choosing women for a magical experiment. Zagan was surprised by the latest sacrifice. He said that such a thing would quickly attract the attention of the church. Barbaros said that they even began to kidnap women based on their origins, such as their date of birth. Zagan thought it was like summoning a demon, but that was just a silly dream. Barbaros said they probably considered Zagan one of their own. The boy said that was stupid. He didn't understand what they were hoping to achieve with magic like that when there were no victims to hand. Barbaros laughed. Barbaros said that if you think about it, Zagan doesn't even have a friend to have a heart-to-heart talk with. Zagan chuckled and thought that he didn't need friends. After a while, the auction began. People were making big bids, buying different things. The guys were sitting in the back. Barbaros told his friend to look. He pointed out various people such as Kimaris, the Edge of Darkness, the Temptress Gomorrah, and even the all-seeing Valafar were there. Zagan asked if they were strong. Barbaros confirmed it and said that they were also candidates for the position of Demon Lord, just like the two of them. The auctioneer said that the next lot is the last one for today and is the gem of the collection. This item was originally intended for Marcosis, but due to his death, it is put up for sale. Barbaros was upset by the lack of Marcosis' legacy. Zagan said it seemed to be another reagent. The host tore the robe off the merchandise. Underneath it was a cute girl. The host said that this was a legendary creature captured in the Holy Lands of Norden, an elf. Zagan was stunned when he saw her. The host said that this was a woman of the highest quality. She would be suitable not only as a ritual sacrifice, but also as a minister of carnal pleasures. He also noticed the girl's white hair. They can do whatever they want with it. There was no trickery or dye, and it's her natural hair color. He said you can start with 10,000. Suddenly, someone in the room said that he would take her for $1 million. Everyone turned to this person in shock. Barbaros looked at his friend in amazement. Zagan confidently said that he would give 1 million in Curiot gold. The host thanked the guy and said that this was a very impressive price. Barbaros began to shout that even for an elf, this was too much. But Zagan was enchanted. He didn't know what this feeling in his chest was. If he tried to put it into words, she was beautiful. He wanted to help her, see her smile and touch her skin. Zagan said that it contained something he had longed for, and he had finally found it. Barbaros exclaimed, asking what ritual Zagan was going to use it for. The guy glared at his friend, after which Barbaros turned pale. Zagan went down to the stage, where the host congratulated the guy, saying that he was becoming the owner of the white-haired elf. The girl silently looked at the floor. Zagan did not know what he should do and how to treat her. He did not understand whether she was okay or under someone's influence. The host asked if Zagan was feeling unwell. The guy noticed the chain on the girl's neck and asked what it was. The host said that this collar seals her magical powers. There's a chance she'll escape if Zagan takes it off, so he needs to be careful. The host said they don't even know how to take it off, since it's a demon lord's relic. Zagan thought for a moment and asked if the girl was conscious. The host confirmed it. The elf was in her natural state after being captured. Moreover, her incredible power is so great that it is impossible to harm her with simple magic. Zagan said that he would take her word for it. The boy turned and said that it would be very sad if she couldn't make a sound in her sweet voice. He thought that the first thing to do was to talk to her. The whole room was horrified by Zagan. The elf just looked at him silently. Zagan didn't understand at all why everyone was reacting like that, and so they came to the point where the girl was asking how he would kill her. She said that if she knew, then she could prepare properly. Zagan jumped up and said that he had no intention of taking her life, and vice versa. Her death was not in his plans. The girl became gloomier and asked if this meant that she could not hope for an easy death. The boy was shocked and thought that all the torture objects belonged to the previous owner of the castle. He sat back on the throne and introduced himself. He said that he was a magician, but such things were not his area of interest. He thought about what to say next. The girl apologized for the late introduction, then said that her name was Nephi. Zagan thought that she had a beautiful name. He asked her what her last name was, but the girl didn't have one. The elf said that if her name was difficult to pronounce, he could just call her Nephi. He asked happily if it was true. She confirmed it. Zagan thought her name was beautiful in itself, but Nephi sounded soulful too. He asked if it was common for an elf not to have a last name. The girl said that it was not so, and all because she was a cursed child. Zagan was surprised. Nephi asked why the master was asking this question. He wanted to answer, but she said that he could be sure that she was innocent. Zagan was shocked. He asked her if she had any idea what she was talking about. The girl was surprised and asked if he wasn't evaluating the experimental material for damage. Zagan told her to understand him correctly, because he did not plan to experiment on her. Nephi asked why she was bought then. After a short silence, Zagan said that she was not supposed to know. He did not understand what kind of nonsense he was saying. He thought that buying her at auction because he fell in love at first sight seemed decent for a bad person, no matter how you look at it. In the end, they can't live together, so that she doesn't see him as such a person. Suddenly, he thought that he would live under the same roof with this unfortunate girl. He tried to calm down because this is not typical of powerful magicians. He said that first of all they should choose her room. He said that she could choose the one she liked. The girl asked if she could really choose where to die. Zagan screamed that he was not going to kill her. The girl said that she did not understand how the master planned to use her, how it could not end in her death. Looking at Nephi, he remembered himself as a child. He said that he bought her only because he needed her, so the topic of her death was closed. The girl looked at him and asked in shock if the master really needed her. The guy said that he did, and the reason was that she was obliged to live for his good. 80. Nephi was shocked. She stood up and agreed. This was the beginning of their long life story. Walking through his castle, Zagan snapped his fingers, turning on the light. Speaking of the room, the boy asked Nephi how she handled the heights. The girl said that she tolerates being hung by the neck and by the arms. Zagan asked who said that. Nephi apologized and said that it was the first thing that came to her mind when the subject of heights came up. He thought that she had been raised to be a lab rat, and perhaps this behavior was to be expected. As they walked up the stairs, Nephi tripped and almost fell, but Zagan quickly caught her. He exclaimed that she should be careful, because the steps were steep. 85. The girl agreed. Zagan held her hand and led her. Suddenly he realized what was happening and blushed. He thought it happened when she stumbled and almost fell. He noted that it was too late to let her go. They reached one of the rooms and Zagan said that he doesn't use that room at all, so it might be a little dirty. As soon as he opened the room, he saw a huge guillotine. He immediately slammed the door. Nephi became dejected. She told him to do as he pleased. Zagan exclaimed that she had misunderstood and that it was definitely a trap for thieves. It was too stupid an excuse even for him. He created magic and said that he didn't need this object and that it was just taking up space. He decided to clean up a bit. Right after that, an explosion thundered in the room. The door fell out, leaving only a black spot in the room. Zagan thought it was hard to tell if the room could be used as a bedroom, but at least he had removed the equipment that had scared Nephi. The girl said with horror that this was the first time she had seen such destructive magic. Zagan tensed up. because she would certainly be scared if he suddenly used combat magic. His constant communication only with Barbaros led the boy to an extremely bad habit. He said that it was not right, and it was too banal. Nephi asked if it could be considered banal. Suddenly the girl saw something and went forward. She went out onto the balcony. Nephi stared at the moon, then stretched her hands towards it. Zagan asked if she liked the moon. The girl lowered her hands and said she didn't know. After that, the guide also reached his hand towards the moon and said he didn't catch it. Nephi said she thought so. She continued to look at the moon. After a short pause, she asked if she could stay in this room. Zagan turned and looked at the chart rune. He asked if Nephi would be comfortable there, since they could find a better room. The girl said that she liked it, because after all, this room was prepared for her by the master. Zagan agreed and said that the room was at Nephi's disposal. The girl thanked the master. Suddenly, Zagan was surprised. Nephi asked what was wrong. The guy said that he had not heard words of gratitude for a long time. The girl said that she had not thanked anyone for too long. Zagan noted that he heard her, after which they continued to look at the moon together. After a while, the sun began to rise. A tired Zagan sat on the throne, thinking about how he couldn't sleep even for a second. Nephi was sleeping on the floor next to him. He thought it was simply impossible to remain inactive when such a defenseless girl was sleeping next to him. He didn't have the courage to do anything, though. He didn't want her to hate him. Nephi was sleeping there because of the state of the room. Zagan thought that he needed to find something to eat. The sun was already high and Nephi woke up. She stood up and noticed that there was no one in the room. She carefully folded the blanket that covered her. When she finished, Zagan came. The girl wished him good morning. Zagan noticed that she said hello, but he did not know what to answer. He thought about answering in the same way, but he suggested that he could wish her a good day. But he didn't think that would be an appropriate answer. After a long pause, he said menacingly that he had brought food and that she should eat. He immediately felt bad because he couldn't even greet her. He sat down on the floor and began to chew his food. As he did, he wondered when he had become so useless. He supposed he had been that way from the start. Noticing that Zagan was eating this, Nephi asked in amazement if he was really going to eat the same thing for breakfast as she was eating. The guy was surprised and asked if that was strange. Nephi hesitated and said that it wasn't exactly like that, and that it was an honor for her to receive the food, but seeing the master eating the same food was a little strange for her. Zagan looked at the girl in surprise, when suddenly it dawned on him. He looked at the dried meat and milk he had brought, and asked if this could be too meager a meal. Nephi said a little nervously that this kind of food was usually only given to servants. Zagan realized that, in other words, it was not even food, but just animal feed. Zagan wondered if she was worried about him instead of being angry. He thought that was unlikely, and that it suited her very well to say that the guy would die if she did nothing. He became even more nervous. He took the piece of dried meat out of his mouth and thought that it couldn't even be called food. He didn't pay attention to it, because it was his usual food when he was a vagabond. He looked up and said out loud that he wondered what normal people ate then. There was sadness on his face. Noticing this, Nephi tensed up a bit. She swallowed hard, then said that it might seem rude of her, but she really wanted to ask if she could cook something for him. Hearing this, Zagan jumped up in shock. He asked in surprise if she really knew how to cook. Nephi said that she only watched from the sidelines, but she could try. Zagan blushed deeply, thinking about Nephi's home-cooked meal. He always thought only about his studies and never bothered with such trifles. But he almost didn't believe that he would be able to taste food from the girl he loved. He took a deep breath, then stood up resolutely and said that he had decided where they would go. The girl meekly agreed. Zagan exclaimed that they would go shopping in the city. As they were getting out, the coachman said he could take the boy to the nearest town for just 3 bronze coins. He asked if they would go. Suddenly the boy realized that he had forgotten something. He had no money left. He told the driver that he could walk for once. In his head was the scene of how he had given 1,000,000 gold pieces for Nephi. Zagan thought that he urgently needed to get money. Together they walked along the road in the forest. Upon returning to the castle, he could not find a single coin. He thought he could sell the torture devices. But even to call an appraiser, he would need a decent amount of money. He thought he should attack the wagon and rob them. As he thought about it, Only one thing stopped him. He turned and looked at Nephi, who was silently following him. He didn't know what she would think of a man acting like a robber. It just meant the attack was off. He thought about giving the castle a thorough cleaning and opening a cafe with Nephi. As Zagan was lost in thought, Nephi suddenly heard someone scream. The cart they were supposed to ride to the city was stopped by a group of bandits. They took all the money from the coachman and dragged the girl who was riding in the cart to themselves. Nephi turned to the owner. Zagan said that they looked like bandits. He noted that there were even magicians among them, and they were just a bunch of harmless bandits. And although the kidnapped would face an unenviable fate, it was not worth getting into a fight. Suddenly he noticed how terrified Nephi was. He asked what was wrong. The girl only said that everything was fine, but in her eyes, there was still the same horror and fear. Suddenly he realized that Nephi could have been kidnapped in the same way. He looked up and told the girl to watch carefully. He raised his hand and then a huge force hit the place where he pointed with his hand. Nephi was very surprised. Zagan said that they were all just losers. Noticing the guy, the bandits were very scared because he was a magician. They did not understand why he needed this. Zagan thought that he wouldn't say anything cool and would just do his job. The bandits started shouting for the others not to run away, because the mage wouldn't have time to cast a spell. One of the bandits rushed at the guy with an axe and said that they would smear him on the ground. Zagan managed to stop the blade of the axe with just one hand, which surprised the bandit. The man exclaimed that this couldn't be. Zagan grinned and asked what kind of fool would think of trying to fight a mage with brute force. The next moment, he grabbed the bandit's axe with all his might, causing it to shatter into pieces. He pushed the man back slightly, causing the bandit to fly away with all his might while blood was flowing from his nose. He flew straight into another bandit. Zagan thought that in the face of fear, they were simply incapable of anything. He wanted to show Nephi that such people were not worth fearing. He turned to the girl and told her to stay behind him. The Nephi were shocked by what had happened. The bandits began to shout that their leader had been crushed. They panicked and asked their master for help. The next moment, a man in a black cloak materialized out of thin air. He said that it was an amazing sight. A magician dispensing justice. Zagan realized that this was a mercenary mage. The wizard said that even this was included in his contract. He did not know who Zagan was, but he said that the boy would regret coming there. The next moment, an incredible magic circle flared up. The bandits began to scream because the flames of magic touched them too. Zagan merely noted that the mage had increased the size of his sigil with fire. He waved his hand and said that he didn't think there was any point in waiting for it to finish. The mage exclaimed that Zagan was not bad, but he was still one step behind. He tried to do something, but nothing worked. He panicked and asked why nothing worked. Zagan confidently walked forward and said that he had taken control of the sigil. He raised his finger and said that it was his now. The next moment, there was an explosion of incredible power. Everyone watched in horror as Zagan left no trace of the mercenary. The boy asked the bandits why they were waiting. He told them to attack, because if they were robbing people, they should be prepared for retribution. The bandits screamed in fear and fell to the floor, shaking with fear. Zagan turned around and saw Nephi staring at him. He panicked, thinking he had made a mistake again. He cleared his throat and said that the bandits were harmless, like trash. And if you beat them up a little, they were actually quite cute. The girl asked if they could be called harmless after attacking peaceful people. Zagan was taken aback. The people who were nearby were briefly in a slight stupor, after which they all burst out laughing. They approached Zagan and said it was great. They were surprised that they were good magicians. The guy was shocked. The driver handed Zagan a bag of money and thanked the guy nicely, then asked if the magician would like to work as their bodyguard for the rest of their journey. He said that he would, of course, pay the guy. Zagan was a little taken aback. He was genuinely surprised that he could make money even this way. He realized that, in other words, if he could deal with a couple of scoundrels, the money would flow like a river. Suddenly, the boy realized something and stopped. It dawned on him that the main villains are usually the magicians. He thought that this was quite interesting. He had fought off bandits many times before, but this was the first time he had been thanked for it. People were milling around Nephi at this time. They asked if she was the guy's assistant, also saying that she was very beautiful and had a worthy companion. The boy assumed that they were not afraid of him only because Nephi was next to him. Together they were sitting on the cart when Nephi suddenly turned to Zagan. The boy asked what happened. The girl looked into the cart and asked why he saved those people. Zagan came to his senses and said that he saved them by accident. In reality, he just wanted to show the girl that there was nothing to be afraid of. But he was excited by the thought that this was their chance to get closer. He thought that in order to find the key to her heart, he needed to say something like he wanted to protect her, or he just couldn't leave people in trouble. He smirked, then said with a stern expression that he just wanted to show the trash his place. The girl looked at Zagan silently. The ride continued in awkward silence. Zagan stared blankly at the sky, wondering why he was still saying such nonsense. Nephi just stared at Zagan in silence. The boys reached the city, where the driver told them with a smile that he would give them a ride again. The boys walked together through the streets of the market. Zagan thought that they needed to buy a lot of other things besides food, but he had no idea what the girl needed at all. The boys approached one of the shops, where Zagan said that Nephi could take whatever she needed. In response, the girl quietly said that she was quite satisfied with her hand-me-downs. The guy was shocked by this answer. He silently thought that if the girl doesn't know what will happen to her tomorrow, then she won't have any desires either. He turned back and saw Nephi curtsy. He remembered how she had almost fallen yesterday. At that very moment, he decided what he would do next. When Zagan entered one of the boutiques, a girl with wings on her back greeted him with a crooked smile and asked what kind of clothes he was looking for. Zagan immediately realized that he was not welcome there. He quietly asked the girl to pick out something suitable for Nephi. The girl was surprised. The consultant happily approached Nephi and noted how beautiful the girl was. The next moment, she saw a large collar on the girl's neck. At that moment, she understood everything and took a deep breath. She took Nephi and told Zagan that he could count on Manuel. That was her name. She told Nephi that she would show her everything. At this time, the frightened girl looked at her master. Manuela quickly took everything off Nephi. At this time, Zagan thought that everything happened as he feared. The collar attracted too much attention. He remembered the host saying that if he was taken down, there was a chance that Nephi would try to escape. He suddenly stopped talking. The very next moment, Manuela entered the room and asked what she would say about Nephi Zagan's outfit. The guy looked at the girl tiredly when he saw in shock a very revealing outfit. Nephi was very embarrassed. Zagan exclaimed in shock, asking what it was. Manuela happily asked the guy what he thought about it, and then said that it was the perfect combination. Zagan loudly asked why, and then asked if he hadn't asked for something to match. Manuela was surprised and said that she thought that this was what Zagan liked. The guy wondered who she thought he was. Zagan looked at Nephi, when suddenly she became very confused. She blushed and asked him not to look at her. Zagan quickly told Manuela to pick out some regular, everyday clothes. The consultant said in disappointment that she had gotten such a model. Zagan exclaimed that she should quickly put the thing away from her hands. She was holding the underwear. Manuela took Nephi and started asking about different kinds of clothes, after which she laughingly said that it was just a joke. Zagan sighed heavily. After a while, Manuela brought out Nephi, who was dressed in a maid's dress. She asked Zagan what he thought of his outfit. Both the dress and the apron were made of silk. The boots were enchanted so that the fatigue would not be felt so much when walking. Zagan asked what Nephi thought. The girl said that any clothes would be fine for her. After this answer, the guy said that if she continued to talk like that, he would dress her in her previous outfit. Manuela's eyes lit up, but Nephi said that she agreed to this. They thanked Manuela for the outfit, when suddenly, as they were leaving, she turned to Nephi and asked if the girl was glad to belong to a master who valued her so highly. Hearing this, Nephi blushed a little and looked at Zagan, wondering if he really appreciated her. She clutched her dress tightly. After that, Zagan called the girl and told her which store they should go to. She followed him obediently. There, the shopkeeper asked what the master magician needed. Zagan said that he wanted the worker to try to do something. He pointed to Nephi's collar and asked if the man knew how to remove it. The girl was astonished. Zagan said he couldn't shake the feeling that she was still Marcos's property as long as the collar was on. He said she didn't need it. The man agreed. Zagan walked away and began to reproach himself for treating Nephi like property again. The man asked the mage if the thing was enchanted. He said that it seemed they couldn't help. He also added that he felt bad saying this in front of Nephi, but the collar might have traps. He said that if they tried to remove it by force, they could harm Nephi. Zagan noted that everything was exactly as he suspected, and this was too dangerous a method. He, of course, had guessed about something like this, but the auction employees did not have the key. He handed a couple of coins to the seller and said it was a token of gratitude. The man refused and said that he had not even done anything wrong and would not have taken payment from Zagan. She said that the guy saved him once. He said it was almost a year ago. His carriage was attacked, but Zagan saved his daughter and him. Then they ran away in terror, but Zagan didn't even try to catch up with them. He apologized to the guy. The guy assumed that they were attacked by the abomination that he was chasing around the area. He said that in that case he would take his money back, but the man shouldn't forget about that meeting either, because he himself no longer remembers anything. The man said he wouldn't forget her and Zagan could come if he needed anything. The guys went out and Zagan was completely confused. He didn't understand what was happening today. Everyone was so friendly it scared him. He wondered if it was because he had brought Nephi with him. The man sat in the shop and didn't know who would have thought that a person with such a repulsive aura could have such an expression on his face. The man smiled. The boys came to a cafe where they had a luxurious meal in front of them. Suddenly Nephi hesitated and asked the boy if he really wanted to take off the collar. Zagan confirmed it. Nephi asked him if he was afraid that she would run away from him if he took it off. He thought that of course it bothered him, because that was probably what would happen, since she had no need to be near him. But he thought, even if she ran away, he said that he couldn't take it off right now, so she shouldn't get her hopes up. Zagan began to worry again, not understanding why he couldn't just say that he wanted to take off the collar. Hearing this, Nephi smiled and said that she understood. Zagan wondered if there was a textbook on how to talk to girls. Suddenly he noticed that the girl wasn't eating. He asked what was wrong. Zagan suggested that she didn't know how to use a fork. The girl said that she knew how to use cutlery, but it was the first time she ate like this. Zagan looked at her as realization dawned on him. He finally understood what it was about her that attracted him so much. He had been like that before. Helpless, homeless, in a world filled with nothing but despair. He started eating and said that if she liked the food, she should just eat it, because she had nothing to be embarrassed about there. She tried to answer, but he told her to eat. Then he added that the food was better than the jerky they had eaten. That morning. The girl looked at the dish, then thanked him for the food. She tried to pick up a tomato with a fork, but she couldn't. Zagan looked at her silently, causing her to blush with shame. Suddenly she saw a spoon on a table. She immediately took it and put the tomato in her mouth. She rolled it around in her mouth while Zagan just waited silently for her to start chewing. The next moment she bit into it and was surprised. She chewed it and swallowed. Zagan asked how she liked the food. The girl said admiringly that she thought it was very tasty. Zagan smiled. She said she thought it would be sweeter, but it was juicy and tender. Zagan thought these little tomatoes really did taste like candy. He tried to pick up a tomato with his fork, but he also failed. He remained silent while Nephi also looked at him. He sighed, then tried again and again, but he still couldn't. There was an awkward silence. Nephi picked up the tomato on a spoon and handed it to the guy. Seeing this, Zagan was amazed that she wanted to feed him. He also noticed that she was touching her lips with this spoon. He wondered if this was normal. He quickly stretched out his head and ate the tomato from the spoon, after which he said that it was very tasty. They both blushed deeply. Nephi noticed that the owner never ordered her anything. The same red guy agreed with this. Suddenly, the girl said that she wanted to be useful to Zagan, after which she asked if he would allow it. The guy looked at her in surprise. He agreed and said that it was only if she wanted it. Nephi thanked him and said she would try. When Zagan finally managed to pick up the tomato with his fork, he handed it to the girl. Nephi was surprised. He asked her if she liked them. He told her to take it. Nephi blushed and then ate the tomato. He asked her how she liked it. The girl said it was very tasty. Suddenly, they heard people in the cafe laughing at them. They left right after that. They rediscovered this relationship, master and maid. For a while, their life went on peacefully. At this time, in the huge building, the girl knight was sighing. The priest entered the room and asked her something was bothering her. The girl immediately stood in front of him and greeted him. He said that there was no need for formalities, and noted that she was one of the heroes who defeated the renegades who were engaged in kidnapping. She said that because of her, 4 holy knights died, which the man sent under her command. She said that she was not worthy of it. The man said that she had taken revenge and was able to come back, so she should be proud of it. She thanked him, but thought it was a lie. They actually found the culprits, and they turned out to be a magician and who wanted to sacrifice the girl. But on the way back, their comrade attacked them. It was one of the mages. He had torn off and used the skin of their comrade. She was on the verge of the same terrible fate, but the mage was not struck down by her, but by another mage named Zagan. His eyes were angry and he killed his attacker without remorse, but there was still a sense of loneliness in him. The priest said that this was not the end. They examined the magician's hideout and found out that the organizer was still at large. The girl asked who it was. The man said that it was Zagan, and he was behind the series of kidnappings. The girl exclaimed that it must be a mistake. The man said that it was highly unlikely that he had nothing to do with it, and besides, magicians were evil. Even if he was not involved, they still had to punish evil. The girl turned to the most reverend and asked him to entrust this to her. The man said that she had a wonderful attitude and that this would be her task. She was the maiden of the Holy Sword, the captain of the Holy Knights, Castle Locust. The boy was grabbed by the head with a strong grip and lifted up. The magician laughed loudly, bringing his hand with the seal to the boy's face. The poor child screamed loudly. The next moment, the magician's hand was covered in the boy's blood. Zagan opened his eyes. Nephi asked if he was awake. The girl stood in front of him. She said that tomorrow was ready and asked if he wanted to eat. Zagan asked in surprise if she had really prepared breakfast. The girl confirmed it. The guy asked if she was waiting for him to wake up. Nephi said that she was also admiring his face. Zagan blushed. 1. Suddenly he realized something, and then he hesitated. He quietly wished her good morning. The girl wished him the same. Together they went into another room. The guy noted that he was finally able to greet her properly. They went into the kitchen, where everything was sparkling with cleanliness. Zagan was amazed to say that the room had previously looked like a cemetery. He noticed food on the edge of the table. He was surprised and asked if they had bought bread yesterday. The girl said that she had baked it herself. Zagan was even more amazed. The girl asked if it was really that strange. Zagan said that he didn't even know because he had never met people who could cook well, much less something appetizing. Nephi's ears began to move and she asked if it was true. Zagan was surprised and wondered if it meant she was happy. He asked if she had eaten. She said she hadn't eaten, and Zagan suggested they eat together. The girl said she had cooked just for him. Zagan asked if she was hungry. She said she forgot to prepare her portion. The guy said they would split the portion between the two of them and invited her to sit down. She said that she had prepared a place just for him. Zagan thought for a moment, then told her to sit on his lap. There was a silence in the room, after which they both blushed. Nephi said that she could not show such disrespect. Zagan, with a stern face, told her not to worry and just sit down. He began to reproach himself for his stupidity. The girl blushed and said that if it was the master's will, she would do it. She sat on his lap. Zagan blushed because it really happened. He handed her the food and told her to eat it, but Nephi said it was too embarrassing. The guy looked at her drooping ears and said he could guess. She said he was too cruel. He said she should cook for herself next time. The girl agreed. He said he wouldn't mind doing it again, but she said she'd rather cook more. Suddenly, Nephi handed him a spoon. She asked him to let her help. The boy was shocked because she decided to pay back. He wanted her to do this all the time, but she was too embarrassed. The boy said he was warm, but he came to his senses and said it was because of the soup. Nephi blushed and agreed. After a while, Zagan was busy and she was cleaning. Nephi asked what kind of research he was doing. The guy asked what it could be if not magic. Nephi said it looked like her, but she didn't know what those circles and signs were. The guy asked if elves had different magic. The girl said she didn't know, because she couldn't cast spells. The guy was surprised, because her mana reserves should be much higher than those of humans. He pointed to one of the symbols and said that they were concepts imbued with power. They were said to be old writings that sealed a pact between the devil and God. He didn't know if that was true. These symbols are the basis, the blueprint of magic. and they form the magic circle. Zagan's circle can generate lightning if enough mana is poured into it. Suddenly, a small crackle came from the circle. Nephi wondered if it was lightning. Zagan said that the magic of such a circle melts instantly. Therefore, it is necessary to frame it with additional symbols that will give it strength and prolong its time. After that, he created a strong lightning. He said that anyone can use the circle if they pour in mana. Therefore, precautions should be taken to prevent it from being intercepted. Otherwise, it can easily be used against him. The certified magic circle is called a sigil, and the frame is a chain. He asked her what she didn't understand. She said the guy had added a chain to the outside, and then asked if she could add it to the inner circle. He said that she was right. It could be done in theory, but not in practice. Her suggestion was to add a new circle to an existing sigil. This disrupts the circulation of mana inside, and magic will either not work or will be unpredictable. But magic is a controlled flow of mana, so this is possible in theory. She asked if it would be possible to take control of the spell in action. He confirmed this, and said that if the mage was capable of this, he would become invulnerable to magic. Any magic will only become a source of power. Such a magician will be the strongest. He said that the theory remains a theory, and if it were possible, there would be less trouble. Also, no one has taken up the study of this issue properly. Mages are only interested in the limits of magic and resurrection. They are not warlike, like knights and mercenaries. Discussion of the guise is exactly the methods of battle, and can only be used to take away the work of other magicians. However, there are still fools who do such things. Nephi said she understood the principles, but doesn't that mean anyone can do magic if they understand the process of creating a sigil? It was true. For a mage, gaining knowledge is equivalent to increasing his power. That's why they protect their research in different ways. He told Nephi to be careful and not to touch anything. He added that he was joking because he had already made the traps not react to her. Nephi said he was stupid. He asked why she was happy. Nephi asked how he knew. He thought her ears were showing everything. The girl said that it was the first time she had spoken to him for so long. Zagan thought that was true, and he always answered her in monosyllables. He said that magic was the only thing he had, and he was happy to talk about it. The girl asked why he wanted to become stronger and what he was stubbornly striving for. Zagan thought about what he wanted. Nephi apologized with a tactless question. Zagan said that everything was fine, and he had never thought about it. If he had to give a reason, it was that he wanted to survive. She was surprised. Zagan said that when he was little, he had nothing and stole to live. But one day, he was caught by a magician. Children are also used in sacrifices, and the magician tried to kill him. But Zagan fought back. Then he realized that he needed strength to live. So he wanted to become stronger. His goal was immortality and eternal youth. Nephi said she couldn't be that strong. Zagan wanted to offer her something about magic when he suddenly felt something. There were people at the castle's threshold. He said they had guests, and he would meet them, and she should cook dinner. He told her to cook for both, because they would not be staying long. The knights were shocked that the main culprit was there. They walked in circles. Castell said it was a magical barrier. She told him to move away. She cut the barrier with her sword. Zagan stood before them. He wondered if the church didn't teach how to behave when visiting. She said she thought it was him. Zagan didn't recognize the girl. Nephi noticed that all the spices were moldy and they needed more. According to legend, 12 holy swords slew the demon king, the strongest heart of the church and a symbol of its power. They say that these precious swords themselves choose their owner, and one of them chose a 13-year-old girl, who became the only female captain in the ranks of the Holy Knights. Zagan thought they had met before. He realized that she was the one who was almost killed near his house. If he had known she was a Holy Knight, he would not have let her go. Castell addressed him. Zagan said he was busy, then attacked them. They said that the mages were indeed cowards, since they attacked without warning. They told Castell that they would deal with him. Zagan suggested that they take their things and leave. They tried to attack him, but he easily broke through the shield and defeated the knight. He flew back. Zagan told them to leave if they didn't want the girl to carry 3 bodies on her back. Another knight charged. Castell wanted to stop him, but he wouldn't. Zagan also easily broke his sword. He struck him and drove him into the ground. He asked if the man understood that if he applied more force, the knight's head would burst. He would never forget that sound. Zagan said he remembered him well. Castel was preparing to attack. He told her not to try, because the knight's head would break before it could move. The girl left her sword. She asked why he acted as if he was laughing at them. Castel asked if he enjoyed humiliating the defeated. He asked if she knew how to best use fear. People are afraid of the unknown, and if he kills them all, it will be just a number for the bosses. To instill fear in them, they need to come back and tell about it. She asked if that was the reason he didn't kill them. She said that was a lie. She said he was protecting himself and the church would do as he said. But his reasons were different. He thought that if Nephi saw the corpses, he would be scared. The girl realized that she was right. She rushed to attack. The boy realized that everything was bad, because she realized that he was not going to kill them. Castel introduced herself and said that by order of the Most Holy One, he would fall into her hands. She rushed to attack. He thought that her blows were strong, even though the dedicated armor multiplied her strength. But she was just a weak girl. She didn't understand why he was ducking, or if it was because she was an unworthy opponent. He said he didn't like hitting women. However, he simply could not hit a girl of Nephi's age. She asked why a man like him would dirty his hands with magic. He asked if it was terrible. She said that magic was evil and was used to suppress people. The guy asked why the priest's power was needed. He asked if they were using her to kill weak mages. She tried to attack him, but he stood on her sword. He didn't try to justify himself, but many would not survive without magic. He asked if she was trying to get rid of such people. Then could she call herself a righteous man of justice? The girl drooped. He didn't want to see her like that, because it was harder to attack. She said that was why she couldn't lose. She attacked him, but he grabbed her sword. He asked her if she wanted to test her strength, to which she agreed. Suddenly, she spun her sword and threw Zagan aside. He noticed that she still had something left. The magic was healing him more slowly. It was the holy sword's effect. She attacked him again. He had no choice but to kill her. She asked him if he could pretend she had killed him. The guy was shocked. She said the church wouldn't stop until he was dead. If she loses, they will send a stronger knight. He should pretend that she killed him and leave the path of the magician and live as a normal person. This was not what he expected to hear from the knight. She said that he did not kill her subordinates, and despite his words, there was condescension in his eyes. She said that she did not forget that he saved her. It was all she could do to help. He thought that she had made a difficult choice. If a holy knight defended a mage, he would be branded a traitor. A terrible fate would await him. She wasn't so stupid as not to understand that. But Zagan couldn't do that. Anyone connected to the mage was branded and would die. If he escaped, they would get Nephi. He didn't know what to do. Suddenly, Nephi ran out. He shouted for her not to come near. One of the wounded knights tried to kill the girl and pointed a weapon at her. Zagan quickly moved and took the hit instead. Nephi was scared. He said it was okay. He was about to kill the knight when he felt strong waves. Sprouts began to rise from the ground. An angry Nephi said that they dared to harm the owner. Zagan didn't understand what was happening. The sprouts were growing and grabbing the knights, squeezing and killing them. The boy caught Nephi and told her to stop. The girl froze. Castel was shocked. Zagan wondered if this was Nephi's power. In the house, she was treating his hand. The holy knights retreated. Castel apologized, because they shouldn't have let outsiders interfere. He was surprised that she apologized in such a situation. Zagan said he didn't think Nephi could use magic. The girl said it wasn't magic. The boy asked what it was. To her silence, he said it didn't matter, because he didn't care how strong she was. Noticing the girl's dejected expression, he thought it sounded like he didn't care. He said she was Nephi, and always would be, no matter what power she had. He was glad he could say that. The girl thanked him. He asked her if she was scared. She was surprised that he asked her that. She asked if she scared him. The guy didn't understand how she could scare him. He said that he had never seen such power before, and he was curious. She was amazed that this was all. She hesitated and said that this power was called witchcraft. He was surprised that it existed. Unlike magic, built on logic and clear principles, witchcraft is embodied from the desires of the sorcerer. Almost unlimited power. A miracle beyond understanding. Zagan asked if all elves could use it. It wasn't. Nephi could because she was a cursed child. No one should have such power, and she should never have been born. So when the humans attacked them, she was ordered to protect the village. They said she owed them for letting her live. When she heard that, something clicked in her head, and she didn't fight back, and the men caught her. The villagers fled in panic. Most were killed, and she had heard that elves could be useful even in death. As she watched, she thought they deserved it. She asked if it wasn't terrible. She heard them cursing her before they died, but she was glad. It was their turn to suffer. Afterwards, she realized what she had done. She stood there and watched them die with a cold-blooded smile. She apologized to Zagan and asked if he found her disgusting. He didn't understand why she should be disgusted by him. She tried to answer something, but Zagan said that in her place he would have killed the villagers along with the attackers. He said she didn't understand something. She thought witchcraft was bad. But power itself is neither good nor bad. Labels are given by people themselves. She said she had done something unforgivable. He asked who wouldn't forgive her. Nephi wanted to say about the villagers, but Zagan said they were dead and she should forget about them, because they no longer had the strength to complain. If she is strong, then she should live and use her strength. Otherwise, she will insult the memory of those who died because they were weak. She asked if she could have such strength. He asked if it was bad to have this power, and if the desire to become stronger was evil. The girl hesitated. He smiled and said that he, too, was called evil incarnate. Nephi was genuinely shocked. Zagan said that he had once saved a young girl from bandits. He told her that it was natural for the weak to die, and if she didn't want that, she needed to become stronger. She was just asking if the weak didn't deserve to live. She was asking if he enjoyed showing off his strength that much. At that moment, he regretted saving her. Pity and kindness are poison that corrupt people. And the girl was already under its influence. She was weak, and the strong will always take advantage of weakness. But he did not want to become like her, and therefore he became stronger. To hope that in the hour of need someone will come to his aid is a mistake. If a child, abandoned even by his parents, hopes for others, he has learned nothing. That is why he wanted it so badly. In the end, he realized that you can't trust anyone. And although the feeling of loneliness tormented him, he did not attach any importance to it. He knew that he could only believe in his own strength, and that was enough for survival. And even though he said this, he was at a loss when Nephi became sad. Someday this contradiction would finish him off. And yet, even if it meant sacrificing his old life, he would not leave her. He told her not to make that face because he needed her. Nephi asked if she could stay with him. The guy agreed and said that she cooks deliciously, and he can no longer imagine his life without her. Nephi burst into tears, and Zagan hugged her. She cried for a long time until she calmed down. Later, she said that it was terribly embarrassing for him to see her like that. He said it wasn't bad, because it was the first time she had talked to him for so long. She scolded him. She asked if his arm hurt. The guy said no more. She took off the bandage, and there was no trace of the wounds on her hand. The guy asked if she did it. He thought that the healing magic didn't work because of the sword, and it happened when he touched her. He thanked the girl. He noticed her gaze and asked what was wrong. Nephi said it was the first time he had ever told her that. He was surprised that he had never thanked her and apologized. She said it was okay because she was his. That night he was sitting in an empty room when Nephi came up to him. He asked what was wrong. The girl shyly asked if she could sleep with him. Hearing this, Zagan blushed deeply. He blushed, thinking that he was a boy and not a girl. He turned to Nephi and asked if she knew what she was talking about. He wondered if she had decided to give herself to him. The girl said she understood because there was only one bed in the castle. The boy was surprised. Nephi said that the owner always slept on his throne, and it seemed to her that it was more comfortable to sleep lying down. She said that if he didn't mind, they could sleep together. Zagan was surprised. He realized that the girl was not offering herself, but really just sleeping together. He thought she was the picture of innocence. He thanked her for her concern, but this place was the basis of his barrier, and he had to be there in case something happened. The girl said that she thought so. She sat down and offered him to lie on her lap. He was even more amazed. He thought that he could not refuse such an offer. Nephi asked how he felt. Zagan said it was pretty good. It tickled him, but it was nice. even though he had nowhere to look. He asked why she had suggested it so suddenly. The girl said that the master had allowed her to stay with him even after learning of her powers, and she wanted to express her gratitude. Zagan said that she was already doing so much for him, and they didn't need formalities. Nephi agreed. Suddenly, he touched her face and asked if she wanted him to teach her magic. The girl was surprised. Zagan said that, judging by what happened today, she did not control her abilities. He did not know if training would help her gain control over her powers, but at least she would be able to protect herself. She asked if she could really do it. He confirmed it and said that she would become a magician even better than him. She asked if she could be useful to him. Zagan said she was already helping. Nephi asked if she could protect him. He asked if she hadn't protected him from the Holy Knights today. The girl said that she agreed to learn magic for him. Zagan wanted her to do it for herself, but he was not against it. From that day on, she became his student. She agreed and turned to him about what he had said yesterday, that he did not understand those who were weak, and that he was capable of doing everything himself. Zagan said he said it. She noted that he said it with ease, after which she suggested that it was very difficult for him. Zagan was taken aback. He asked her why she decided that. She didn't know the answer, but at the time he looked very sad. She hugged him and said that he is not evil and he rarely says anything, but she will never forget his kindness. The guy was shocked. He heard her, then closed his eyes. He thought that all this was not so bad. After a while, Barbaros came to the castle. Zagan was calmly drinking tea. Barbaros, worried, said he heard that his friend had been attacked by the Holy Knights. He asked if it was true. Zagan said he had no idea they would be so weak. Barbaros said that there was even a rumor that the owner of the Holy Sword was there. Zagan said that there was someone there. Barbaros asked if Zagan was saying that even the Holy Sword Maiden was no match for him. The boy said that she was quite strong and that she was able to break the castle's barrier. Barbaros was given tea and told to add sugar and milk as desired. He thanked the servant, but was shocked to see Nephi. He poured the tea. Zagan caught the drink with magic. Barbaros asked if it was the elf. Zagan confirmed it was. Barbaros was surprised that Zagan had not yet sacrificed her, and in exchange for her life, she became his maid. Zagan told Barbaros not to compare him to himself because Nephi was his student. Barbaros was even more shocked. Zagan said that there was magic that he alone could not handle, and he was sure that Nephi would be useful to him. The girl thanked him for these words. Barbaros took the tea and noted that in tandem with the elf, Zagan could use almost any magic. He had never thought that it could be used like that. Zagan thought their speeches were similar, but he didn't like the mention of Nephi as a tool. Barbaros asked if this meant that the elf helped him defeat the Holy Knights. Zagan said that it was due to Nephi's power. Barbaros asked if that meant that the situation in the courtyard was her doing. He asked if Zagan really wanted to become a demon lord. The boy wondered if he became a demon lord. Would the mages leave Nephi alone? He didn't want the throne, but if he could get that, he wasn't sure. He asked if there was any reason for him not to do so. He told Nephi that the tea tasted good. Barbaros asked sternly if his friend had any special feelings for Nephi. Zagan asked if it was strange to patronize his student. This word saved him. Barbaros laughed and said that even in Zagan there was still something human. Zagan barked at his friend. Barbaros stood up and walked towards the exit. Zagan asked why he had come at all. Nephi asked if they were friends. Zagan shouted at her not to joke like that. Because if you don't choose your friends carefully, they only bring you trouble. The girl thought that the owner was having fun. Zagan was surprised. He thought that it was absurd, and Nephi had misunderstood everything. The guy said that it was time to restore the barrier and start training Nephi. The girl followed him obediently. For the next few days, they worked hard and studied magic. Zagan taught Nephi the basics of magic. She had reached a level where she could use magic if she didn't have that collar on. As for witchcraft, she still hadn't mastered it. And so, in the blink of an eye, half a month had already passed since Zagan bought Nephi. While cleaning the mansion, the girl suddenly heard a lightning bolt. She looked outside and saw Zagan standing in a field while a huge black bird hovered right above him. The boy said suspiciously that this was very unexpected. By this time, frightened Nephi had already gone out into the yard. The bird handed the boy a small envelope. Nephi asked what it was. Zagan said it was an invitation from the 12 lords. Keenid, a thriving and bustling city, crisscrossed by a network of canals used to transport goods. Just beneath this city lies the abandoned castle of the demon lord Marcosis, and in this very place the remaining 12 lords gathered, as well as Zagan. The guy did not understand what they wanted from him. One of the lords noted that this was Zagan. The boy felt a chill on his back. The man said that he had heard that Zagan was young, but the boy was almost a child. They were curious, because Zagan could be the youngest among them. Zagan felt like a frog with a snake staring at him. It felt like he had already been eaten. The boy realized what the pinnacle of the magical society was, the demon lords. He grinned. The boy asked if they had called him just to watch. He said that if he had satisfied their curiosity, he would probably go back to his business. The lords laughed at the boy's harsh speech in such a place. It was impudent. One of them said that in that case they would also speak frankly. He exclaimed to Zagan that they had summoned him to join them. They had offered him the chance to become the 13th demon lord. Zagan was shocked. The overlord summoned an incredibly powerful magic and told Zagan to see the overlord's seal that Marcosis possessed. He told Zagan to inherit it, and then he would gain the status of a demon lord. Zagan looked at the unusual seal in amazement. He thought that it contained a monstrous concentration of mana, and he was surprised that they were offering it to him. He thought that demon lord was just a title, but such power was emanating from everyone present at the meeting. He suddenly realized that a mere mage would not stand a chance against lords who possessed such power. Suddenly, one of them, still smiling, asked if something was wrong, and Zagan wanted to refuse. The guy smiled and said that he was simply flattered, because there were many magicians much stronger than him. He didn't understand why him. The lord said it was an obvious question. He said that Zagan's strength was indeed weak, and yet no mage could defeat him. Zagan chuckled to himself. The overlord had stated that Andros the Disturber was the first one the boy had killed. He was far from weak, but Zagan had managed to defeat him. He was also able to take over Andros' legacy. An 8-year-old child managed to kill a mage, and won with a title at that. They said that the boy was able to learn the spell after seeing it just once. Moreover, after seeing it just once, he was able to understand the essence and structure of magic. This was the source of Zagan's power. The boy realized that they already knew about his little secret. The Lord said that this was truly wonderful magic, and at the same time it was terrible and disgusting. Whatever Zagan wished for would be his, and no one would stop it. Anyone the boy didn't want to kill would die, and no one would be able to resist. If Zagan tried to take someone else's power, the mages would have to give it to him without a trace. They said that this was truly the power of a tyrant. Power befitting the title of Demon Lord. Zagan became stern. They said that one day he would become the most powerful mage in history, and therefore, even though he is weak now, he will still take a risk and they will give him the title of ruler. Everything was for the development of his potential and for the future of magic. Zagan turned away and said that if those words were true, he didn't understand what was stopping him from taking a power right now. Suddenly, a strong pressure rose in the room. The lords confirmed this, but said that they were warning the boy, because perhaps he would lose more than he would gain from them. Zagan turned pale, and an image of Nephi appeared before his eyes. They said that the Lord's revenge is not a threat of violence. They will take everything, his property, his loved ones, even his name. They will destroy his very existence. This was what awaited Zagan. This was what he had to be prepared to go against. Peace and tranquility would become a dream, and above him would be an abyss beyond the capabilities of magic. This is the world he is about to enter. Zagan turned even paler. He thought it was too late. When he became a mage, or even before, when he had to become a mage because there was no other choice, even then he had lost hope for a quiet life. For a magician, there are only two paths: to reach the top or to rot on the road to it. And he had been walking along it for a long time. He introduced Nephi again. He didn't know if he could pull her into this world with him. The Lord said they were waiting for the boy's answer. Zagan said there was something else he needed, and his answer depended on whether he got it. The Overlord agreed, and said Zagan was free to do whatever he wanted with it. The boy extended his hand, and said that in that case he accepted their offer, and he would become the Demon Lord. Suddenly, a concentrated energy reached out to him. The Lord said that they should welcome their new comrade, the mage Zagan. They would bestow upon him a title, and from now on he would have a new rank. At this time, Nephi was cleaning the castle when she suddenly heard someone return. She immediately came out and greeted the owner happily, saying that she had cooked lamb stew today. Suddenly, the girl began to worry. She saw that Zagan was too serious. The tense girl asked him if something was wrong. Zagan thought that his fate was sealed from the very beginning, but Nephi was just a random ray of light that looked into this world. Zagan said in a heavy voice that he had become a demon lord. Nephi looked at him in confusion. Zagan raised his hand and showed the mark. He said that he had become the ruler of all magicians, the one everyone else followed. He had climbed to the top of magic. Nephi admired and congratulated the boy on this. Zagan also said that he had inherited the title of Lord, and with it he had received all of Marcos's legacy. Suddenly, he picked up a small key. He quickly brought it to Nephi's neck and twisted it. In an instant, the magic circle on Nephi's collar cracked, and Zagan said that he was removing these shackles from her. Nephi looked down at her neck, where there was nothing now, in shock. She looked at Zagan and tried to formulate her question. Suddenly, Zagan said that the Lord no longer needed her help, and from now on, she was free. After these words, he said goodbye to her. Nephi turned pale from shock. Nephi was sitting on one of the steps outside, staring into space. Suddenly, she looked up and tried to figure out what she was doing there. There were ruined buildings all around her. She remembered that she had just recently cooked dinner. She had made the lamb stew that her master had liked so much. She stood up and thought that she should go back quickly. Suddenly, she heard a sound. She turned around and saw her collar on the ground. Nephi turned pale. At that very moment, she remembered what had happened earlier. She picked up the collar and said that her master had thrown her out. She remembered him telling her that she needed to live for him. All the times he cared about her. When he gave her a room and asked if she was okay. In her head were the words that he needed her. Nephi lowered her head and thought that even now she could not cry. Even though Zagan said he would be there for her, he left her. She sat down again and drooped. Suddenly, someone came up to her and asked if she was okay. It was Castell. Suddenly, the girl realized that it was Nephi who was with Zagan. Nephi looked up and realized that the Holy Knight was standing right in front of her. She stood up and walked a little unsteadily towards Castell. She smiled coldly and asked if Castell had come to kill her. Castell was confused. Nephi started walking towards her. She asked the Holy Knight to behead her or kill her in any way. Castell started screaming that Nephi had misunderstood, and she didn't want to kill anyone. Nephi came closer and asked if the Holy Knights hunted mages. She said that she was a mage's apprentice. Castell panicked and screamed under the pressure of the elf. Suddenly, passers-by began to notice what was happening. They recognized the elf as little Nephi. They thought that a Holy Knight was pestering her. They said that it was probably because she served a mage. Nephi asked what was wrong. She asked if it wasn't a knight's duty to execute anyone involved with magic. Castell screamed at Nephi to stop talking like she was a murderer. Nephi asked if this was true. Castell exclaimed that it was a lie. Suddenly, Manhuwa jumped up in front of the Holy Knight and ordered her to stop. Nephi was surprised. Manhuwa asked what Castell was doing. She didn't understand since when Holy Knights were allowed to torment little girls. She asked if Castell had no conscience at all. The girl started to say that this was not so and tried to justify herself, but passers-by joined in. They shouted that it was not because Nephi often shops there, but because she is a kind-hearted girl. They said that even Nephi's face turned pale, and all because of this villainess. Nephi looked at it silently, not knowing what to say. Castell couldn't say anything either. The crowd was shouting at her to go away. They were saying that she was a monster and not to come back. On her knees, Castell tried to say something to the angry crowd. Suddenly, Nephi intervened and said that the knight had done nothing to her. The crowd froze. They asked why Nephi was so pale. Castell, who was sitting on the floor, couldn't take it anymore and started shaking. She started crying loudly and reminded that she had already said that she just thought Nephi needed help and she wanted to help her. Manhwa felt awkward as Castell cried nonstop. After a while, they stopped at a tavern, where Castell apologized for such an unsightly behavior. There was silence. Manhwa asked if she really hadn't done anything to Nephi. Castell asked how many times she could repeat that. The girl asked if Castell had done anything before. The girl said she was doing her duty. Manhwa said Castell was using duty to hurt people. Castell started crying again. Nephi said it was okay because everything worked out. Manuela asked if that was true. Nephi said that the master had been hurt by another man, and he had learned his lesson. Castel remembered that the man was now afraid of trees. Manuela asked what Castel did then and if she carried things. Nephi said she carried the others when they retreated. Castel screamed that it was not true. She was the maiden of the Holy Sword, one of the 12 commanders of the Holy Knights. She did not understand how she could be described like that. Nephi asked if she had lied about something. Castel hesitated. Nephi was surprised that she was so timid, because during the mission she seemed very brave. Soup was placed in front of Nephi. The girl said that she could not accept it, and she did not have money. Manuela said she was treating the girl. She also added that Castel was paying for herself. Nephi tried the soup and thought it was so similar to what she had cooked for her master. It was lamb stew. Suddenly, Nephi started crying. The girls looked at her in surprise and started asking if she was okay. Castel didn't understand if she had done something wrong. Nephi wondered why the owner did this. She began to cry loudly. Manuela hugged Nephi. She said that Nephi could cry in her sister's vest as much as she wanted. She also hugged Castel. After a while, Nephi told her what had happened. The girls asked if he had really sent her away after that, and not even explained anything. Castel said she thought he was a decent man, but he was just using her. Nephi said the master was not like that. Castel said she shouldn't be angry. Nephi said she wasn't angry. The emotionless face scared Castel. Manuela asked if it was possible that he had changed somehow. She asked if Nephi had noticed anything before he sent her away. Suddenly she remembered his words and asked who the demon lord was. Manuela wondered if that was what the best mages were called. This city was previously under the control of Lord Marcosis. Under him, there was order. But after his death, terrible things happened one after another. Castel asked if Manuela was talking about the kidnapping of girls. The girl confirmed this and said that he had apparently already been caught by the church servants. Castel fell silent. Nephi said that the townspeople were not very kind to the church. Manuela said that it was because they demanded huge sums for any help. All the while she was looking at Castel. Nephi said that it wasn't Castel who was running this gathering, and she didn't think she was to blame. Castel said that Nephi was very kind, and she understood why he wanted her around. She said that the church calls the lords the embodiment of evil, and says that they must destroy them, even at the cost of their lives. But for every 12 holy sword wielders, there are 13 lords. Even if each of them takes one with them, they will still stand. And if a new demon lord appears, the church will do everything in its power to kill him before he accumulates enough power. In addition to this, other mages also want this title. Nephi thought that this could end in bloodshed. She assumed that this could be the reason. Castel said that she wanted to ask Nephi for something. She asked if Nephi had seen other mages accompany Zagan, or if he had kidnapped people and performed sacrifices. Nephi said that had not happened. Although the owner does not show it, he is very concerned about the weak. Even when he took the card away from the bandits, he said that he did it only because he could not stand them, but he probably said it to calm Nephi down. Castel said she was right. Like Nephi said, when they fought, he didn't fight with all his strength because she was a woman. She was ashamed to admit it. Manuela laughed and asked if the maiden had really fallen in love. Castel blushed and asked what nonsense, since that was not what she was getting at. She said that when they first met, he looked like a man who needed help. Nephi was surprised. Castel said that even if he doesn't admit it himself and tries to hide his feelings, he is looking for reciprocity and warmth. She couldn't describe it, but Nephi understood everything. It was when he talked about the past. Nephi noticed that she was not the only one who understood his feelings. She felt jealous, but she was glad. The master really was as she knew him. He would not throw her out because she was useless. She said she wanted to go back to him. Manuela panicked. Nephi said the master was strong and would not lose, but that did not mean he could not be hurt. No one should be left alone for long. She wanted to be his support and support. Castel said she would help as much as she could. Nephi asked if she wanted to fight him. Castel said that she didn't, and that some mage was committing crimes under the name of Zagan. She couldn't help directly, but she could get rid of the stain on her reputation. They asked if knights were enemies of mages. Castell confirmed this and said that he had already saved her twice and she had never paid him. Manuela said that since they had come to their senses, they would finish. She told the waitress that Castell would pay for everything. The girl screamed that but she didn't order it. Manuela said she was joking. Nephi asked why Manuela was so kind to her. The girl asked if they weren't friends. Nephi was surprised. She said no one had ever called her that before. Manuela hugged her and said that she would be her first friend and that they would be fine. Nephi agreed. Castell raised her hand and asked if she could consider her a friend too. Manuela asked if a knight could be friends with a magician. The girl was afraid to say anything again. Manuela hugged them with her wings and asked if she could make fun of her like that if they were not friends. Castell asked if this was part of friendship. Suddenly, someone called the knight. They saw Castell and did not understand what was happening. Nephi recognized the people who had hurt the master, and Castell thought things would get more complicated. Manuela asked if they had hurt Zagan, and then said she didn't like the church. They didn't understand why Manuela was so hostile to the church, while Castell said she didn't plan to do anything bad. Suddenly, they were enveloped in a dark energy. Someone said that friendship is beautiful. The stranger grabbed Nephi and Castell. The knight pushed Manuela away. The stranger said that one was gone, but everything was fine. He said that his name was Zagan, and if they wanted to free them, he was waiting for them in his castle. Nephi was shocked. In the pitch darkness, the hero was all alone. The young man with a sad expression on his face noticed that being completely alone, it became very quiet around. The hero silently looked at the night sky. One of the azure sky knights he had defeated groaned. One of the 3 fallen warriors lying on the magic circle expressed his dissatisfaction with their defeat. Another warrior expressed surprise at how easily the young man had defeated the 3 azure sky knights. The hero silently turned towards his fallen enemies. The young man looked at his exhausted enemies with disdain and said that they had suddenly attacked him and then fallen into a trap without him even having to do anything. The young man remembered that Nephi had set all these traps. Remembering this fragment, the young man thought. The hero clenched his fist furiously. He reminded himself that he had met Nephi only half a month ago. When this fuss died down, no one would think that they were somehow connected. He remembered that the people of Kyanit were kind to Nephi. There, away from the mages and the church, she could live in peace. He had a picture in his head of the people of Kyanit, encouraging and caring for Nephi. The young man turned and set off. Behind him, on the ground, lay one of the knights, who clearly wanted to do something. The warrior grabbed the hero by the leg and frantically asked him to stop. The hero looked at the fallen warrior. The Knight of the Azure Sky said that they did not care what happened to them and asked the young man to spare Madame Chastel. 7. Tears appeared in the knight's eyes, and he added that his mistress was so sure that he was not behind the kidnappings that she contradicted the cardinal himself in trying to find the culprit. He tearfully asked him to let her go. The young man looked at the knight in bewilderment and asked the name Chastel. He asked the knight in bewilderment what he was talking about. Suddenly a cry was heard addressing the young man. A winged woman fell from the sky and landed on the back of the knight's head. Her appearance slightly surprised the young man. The knight was clearly unhappy that the woman landed painfully on his head. The warrior angrily asked the woman what she was doing, addressing her as if she were a bird. The woman angrily reminded the knights that the young man was not the culprit. The bickering of this couple was annoying the hero. He noticed to himself how annoying they were. He began to cast some kind of spell and thought about driving them out. The woman suddenly turned towards the hero and asked him for help. The woman told the young man that Nephi and Chastel had been kidnapped. Her words greatly surprised the magician. She also added that she tried to hide their acquaintance and assumed that it was too late. The woman grabbed the hero by the cloak and asked him once again to save the girls. The young man looked confused. The hero fell into despair. He understood that he could not simply close his eyes to this. But if this happened, the church would not leave her alone. The hero realized that he could not simply rush to save her. He needed to figure out how to do it unnoticed. The woman aggressively asked the hero why he was so slow. Her words stunned the young man. The winged maiden said that Nephi was going to return to him. Her words greatly surprised the magician. The woman screamed that Nephi wanted to be with the young man, to be his support. She added that no matter how many times he kicked her out, she would always come back. After her words, the girl became very angry. Tears appeared in her eyes. She asked the young man if mages were really so insensitive that he didn't care about her. She slammed her fists on the hero's chest and angrily asked why the hell he was so kind to her. The young man felt pain. The hero realized that this pain was much more painful than any wound he had. He saw a tearful and very upset winged girl in front of him. The young man wondered if Nephi wanted to come back to him. After everything he had told her, remembering the old days with Nephi, the hero realized that he already knew that, despite her ears giving her away, Nephi had special feelings for such a vile villain as he. The magician lowered his head in disappointment. The young man thanked the girl, because her words brought him to his senses. The girl with wings was very surprised by his words. After that, the hero confirmed her words and agreed that the mages are a rabble. He added that they only think about themselves. The rest are nothing more than tools for them. He completed his speech by saying that the mages can take their lives without blinking an eye. The young man clenched his fist and said that they, magicians, should think only about their own benefit. The hero turned around in an epic manner and added that Nephi belonged to him and the idiot who touched her would be punished. He added that he would have to get his hands dirty, but mages were sinful creatures anyway. If he had to use the power and authority of the Lord to protect her, then so be it. His words struck the winged maiden. After these words, the magician conjured a large magic circle on the ground. He turned to the girl arrogantly and said that he would save Nephi. The hero asked the girl if she would go with him. The girl confidently answered that she would go with him because Nephi was her friend. The young man was a little happy about her words. 3 knights grabbed the young man and asked him to take them with him and take them to Madame Chastel. Their actions greatly surprised the magician and the winged maiden. The young man agreed to take them with him, but only if they took their dirty hands off him. The woman noted with confusion that the girls had been kidnapped by some shadow, and she didn't even know where they were. The magician calmly replied that there was nothing to worry about. The young man added that he knew who was behind it. After this, he added that magicians are indeed incorrigible. Meanwhile, in the cave, the kidnapped girls were chained to the wall. Nephi looked rather exhausted. Chastel turned sharply towards the girl and asked her how she felt. Nephi realized that she was handcuffed. Looking at the shackles, she realized that there was a magic-suppressing power in these chains. She grabbed her collar with her hands and noticed that the power in this collar was not as sophisticated as the one she had before, but it was still not strong enough. Looking at the chains that bound her, she tried to use magic, but it didn't work. After that, a knock was heard from the other end of the cave, which immediately caught the girl's attention. A stomping sound came from the dark corridor. The stranger's footsteps alerted the girls. Nephi looked contemptuously at the person who came out of the dark part of the cave and said that she thought he was a friend of the owner. Mr. Barbera stood arrogantly in front of the girls. He was surprised by the girls' words. He replied that he would never have thought that someone would think of something like that when they saw a couple of magicians. The villain quickly grabbed Nephi by the neck and pulled him towards himself. He looked haughtily at the angry Nephi and asked if she had ever heard of Andrus the Troublemaker. The magician held the girl's chin in his hand. Barbaros added that Andras was the first mage that Zagan killed, and he was his student. As he spoke these words to the girl, he remembered seeing the decayed corpse of his teacher. His words shocked the girl. Barbaros smiled slyly and hoped that the girl would not misunderstand him. He said that avenging a teacher is not in the spirit of magicians. Barbaros's eyes filled with madness, and the magician told the girl that he himself would have killed him someday if Zagan had not done it. The magician let the girl go. After that, Barbaros added that the castle that Zagan now owned, the money he bought her with, and even his knowledge, all of this was supposed to be his. The magician exhaled and noted that he couldn't just give up and accept it. Barbaros assumed a thoughtful expression and said that at first he had tried to set the church on him, but that had not worked. He added that his subordinates were too easy to find, and the subordinate he had sent to Zagan he had easily eliminated. His words greatly surprised Chastel. The girl, horrified, asked Barbaros if she was behind all these kidnappings. Barbaros looked at the girl and asked if she had only just realized this. His words angered Chastel. Chastel asked in a rage if he had done these terrible things just to frame him. Barbaros pressed his hand hard against the wall where the girl was chained. He approached the girl and arrogantly said that she was mistaken. Barbaros said that it was to flay, suggested using sacrifices. After these words, the magician turned and headed for the exit. He added that they still wanted to conduct a large ritual. Barbaros turned around and solemnly declared that he had done this to prove to the 12 demon lords that he was worthy of becoming the next lord. All he had to do was eliminate the other candidates. The magician added that he was a little worried when his prepared victims were taken away from him. But then he got her. He said that the magical power of the white-haired elf would be enough to open the door. His words alerted Nephi. Nephi looked down, disappointed. She hung her head and said that it was all rather pointless. Barbaros noticed how talkative she was. He asked her if she thought that he wouldn't kill her or that Zagan would come to save her. Nephi realized the words of the magician and answered negatively. She added that she did not want her current situation to add to the troubles of the master. She added that this was out of the question. Barbaros arrogantly asked what she was talking about then. Nephi replied that the title of lord had already been given to her master. Her words stunned the magician. Barbaros said distantly that she was lying. Nephi calmly replied that it was the truth, which was why he had gotten rid of her. Barbaros leaned against the wall in surprise. Manga was horrified by what he heard. He said that this could not be. Then Barbaros realized that Zagan had become the Lord of Demons. The magician concluded that it was not enough for Zagan to steal Andras's legacy, but now he had also taken the throne of the Lord. Barbaros pressed his hand to his forehead. He was angry. The state of the magician horrified Nephi. The mage pulled the chains hard and ordered the elf to stand up. Nephi fell to the cave floor. Barbaros angrily said that he would simply take the title from him if he completed the ritual. The magician brought the girl into a large room with a huge and complex magic circle on the floor. He added that he would not care whether he was a ruler or not. Chastel screamed after the mage to stop and use her, adding that she had been prepared for this when she became a knight. Barbaros looked haughtily at the chained Chastel and replied that he would have found a use for her even without her reminders, but the ritual required only the best tools. Hearing his words, Nephi fell into despair. She played the words of Barbaros in her head. She remembered her childhood, and that all her life she was called exactly that. After that, she realized that her master never called her a tool, not even once. The elf tried to run away and screamed at the magician to let her go. She wanted to survive and return to her master. Even if he scolded and drove her away, she would still resist and be with him in the castle. She wanted to cook for him and lay him on her lap and do everything so that he would be counted. Her actions angered Barbaros, and he pulled the chains down with force. Nephi fell to the floor. She understood that maybe her life was insignificant. Maybe the day would come when he would find someone he valued more than her. She told herself that she would not leave her master alone. Nephi stood up from the ground and said that she was not in pain at all. When he drove her away, the pain was many times stronger. Barbaros calmly watched the girl's actions. Nephi growled and began to gather her strength. The elf, with tears in her eyes, declared that she belonged only to her master and added that he had no right to touch her. The magician smiled and began to gather mana in his fingers. Barbaros conjured a huge black flame with the intention of punishing Nephi. An explosion sounded behind the magician, which broke through the wall of the cave, which stunned the villain. Barbaros turned around in surprise. In the resulting window stood Zagan. He told Nephi that it was an excellent speech. Zagan added haughtily that she was haughtily, because she was his student. Zagan turned to Barbaros. He asked him how long they had not seen each other. Barbaros was extremely displeased with his appearance. He straightened up haughtily and asked when Zagan had figured it out. Zagan calmly entered the cave. He replied that he had begun to suspect something when he had come to Skin. Zagan also added that the magician who fell at his feet, tremblingly begging for mercy, was unable to break through his barrier. He also recalled that after the incident with the flare and after the encounter with the knights, Barbaros had come forward as if trying to verify something. Zagan added that it would be strange not to suspect him. The villain was confused when he heard his answer. Zagan said that this was not the issue now, and turned his gaze to the elf in tears. After that, Zagan cast a cruel glance at Barbaros and rhetorically asked if he had touched Nephi. There was a loud explosion. The villain was confused and began to cast a spell. The young man quickly closed the distance with the kidnapper and hit him on the arm, which surprised the latter greatly. The enemy's actions infuriated Barbaros. After that, Zagan quickly hit the villain on the legs. Barbaros screamed in pain, and Zagan went to Nephi. On the way, he removed the shackles from his servant. Zagan came closer to Nephi and asked if it hurt her. Nephi looked at the master in shock. She confirmed his fears. The elf pressed herself against the master and assumed that he was in much more pain than she was. Her words greatly surprised the magician. Nephi added that she didn't know what had happened to him, and when he said he didn't need her anymore, she decided she just had to accept it. Nephi, in tears, laid her head on her master's chest and said that she simply could not find peace, knowing how much pain he was in. After that, she asked Zagan not to close himself off so much. Zagan looked humbly at the slave. At this time, Barbaros began to rise from the floor. Zagan's opponent pressed his hand to the floor and cast a magic circle on it. He arrogantly asked if Zagan thought he had already won. Nephi, confused, turned the master's attention to the enemy. Zagan calmly told her not to worry. He turned his gaze to Barbaros and said that nothing would happen. The magic circle under the magician's feet disappeared. The disappearance of the spell greatly surprised Barbaros. He tried to cast another spell, but his magic evaporated again. Barbaros didn't understand what was happening because he had cast the spell correctly. Nephi was shocked. She didn't know what was happening. Zagan reminded the maid how they had discussed the most powerful spell that could theoretically exist. He talked about adding your chains to magic circles, taking control of other people's spells. There's a trick that can achieve a similar result. He added that it was enough to create exactly the same sigil as the enemy, and add your own circle to it. Zagan looked haughtily at the confused and angry Barbaros. He added that then, the effect similar to resonance would change the spell. Zagan remembered that he first used magic at the age of 8, when he killed Andras. He remembered the spell that Andras the Disturber had used to catch him, and traced it in blood on his palm. It was just a childish trick. A layman who mindlessly copied the form should not be able to use magic. 94. Yet when the mage caught up with him while he was trying to escape, Zagan used the same spell against the lightning that was supposed to kill him. At that moment, the resonating magic reflected back at Andras and killed him. Perhaps it was just a coincidence, a miracle born from two identical spells cast a split second apart. The boy wondered what if it was possible to not only reflect magic, but also redirect it with another, and that was when Zagan began his research. Barbaros stood up and said that it was impossible. He asked if this was Andras's legacy. The magician added that if he knew such a thing, he would still be alive. Barbaros became furious. After that, he conjured a huge number of powerful magic circles in the air. The villain asked Zagan who he was. Zagan looked at the enemy piercingly. In an instant, he erased all of the enemy's magic circles, which terrified the latter. Barbaros couldn't believe what was happening. He knew that Zagan was seeing this magic for the first time. Barbaros realized that Zagan had copied all of his magic in the blink of an eye. The hero realized that this magic was both amazing and terrifying, and that even a novice could use it. Zagan understood that even a novice could cause resonance if he prepared in advance, but he developed this ability even further. Zagan conjured white magic circles in the air and drew his enemy's attention to them. He said that these were sigils that would transform all the spells he had just used. Zagan added that for now he can only redirect them to physical enhancement, his ability, but he will continue to improve this ability. Barbaros realized in horror that his opponent had absorbed his magic. Zagan stepped towards his enemy and informed him that he had finally been given a title. Zagan tightened his fist and added that he was now called the Mage Killer. Zagan struck the air and Barbaros received a powerful wave of magic in the stomach. Magic circles were placed in front of Zagan, and a powerful blow fell on Barbaros. The outcome of the battle greatly surprised Nephi. Barbaros realized that no mage could match Zagan's physical strength, as he had absorbed even his defensive magic. The exhausted mage looked at Zagan and realized that if he struck, even the Lord would not be able to withstand it. Zagan took a sharp step towards the fallen Barbaros. The magician knelt down and asked Zagan to stop, and also declared that he surrendered. Zagan continued to walk towards the fallen enemy. Barbaros swore that he would give him all his knowledge and he would never see him again. Zagan did not stop, which horrified the magician. In panic, Barbaros backed away. He looked at his enemy and told him that they were friends. Hearing the words of the loser, Zagan smiled. He raised his fist up and cast a spell. Then he asked Barbaros if such a concept existed among the mages. After his question, he struck the ground. The flash from the blow blinded Nephi and reached Chestel, whom the winged maiden was desperately trying to free from her shackles. Zagan's blow landed just to the right of Barbaros's head, which left the latter in shock. Zagan smiled and said he was just joking. The defeated mage stood up and asked his enemy what this meant. Zagan looked thoughtful and said that he had no reason to kill him. He noted that if Barbaros died, he would have nowhere to get all the tasty drinks, and he was not good at that. The magician grinned angrily and asked if Zagan felt sorry for him. His opponent smiled arrogantly and said that he had the right to do so. His words offended Barbaros. Barbaros screamed that if he left him alive, he would kill him. He would definitely kill him. He would definitely kill him. He would not rest until Zagan breathed. Zagan looked at the magician kindly and said that let it remain that way. Now Barbaros will owe a bottle every time he loses. His words stunned the enemy, and he asked what the hell he was talking about. The beaten Barbaros did not know what he was talking about. The beaten Barbaros did not know what he was hoping for by leaving the enemy alive. After that, he added that he would do whatever he wanted, and if Nephi wanted to live under the sun without hiding, then he only needed to rule everything that it illuminated. Nephi listened to her master's words with delight. Zagan added that he would not kill Barbaros. If he did not like something, then with his strength he would subjugate it to his will. Barbaros looked at the victor with a detached expression. He soon accepted defeat and called the enemy an arrogant bastard. Zagan looked at the beaten mage and asked what the Lord would be without his pride. The girls watched the hero with joy. The magic circle the boys were standing on lit up. This greatly surprised Zagan. He exhaled and asked the magician if this was his doing. Barbaros looked at the circle in confusion. He replied that he had done nothing. His answer shocked Zagan even more. Zagan looked at the defeated enemy. The hero assumed that when he struck the ground, he accidentally touched the magic circles. Meanwhile, the circle was activated and glowing. Zagan pulled Barbaros towards him and noticed the strange mana. Zagan looked at Barbaros in horror and asked what he was trying to do. Barbaros replied that the thing was supposed to summon real demons. A creature of an incomprehensible shape emerged from the portal. There is a theory that magical symbols and perhaps even church symbols are ancient writings left by gods and demons. Zagan wondered if they could really summon something that had long since vanished from this world. The circle glowed brighter and brighter. The sight of the monster terrified everyone present. The monster stretched upwards, surprising the magicians with its height. Zagan is horrified. He suspects it is just a shadow. Zagan speculated that the lack of casualties and random activation prevented the summoning. He is horrified that his assumptions could be correct. Zagan was dumbfounded by the sight of the creature. He laughed nervously. The hero realized that people were no match for this monster. The young man realized that meeting the monster would be death for him. After his reasoning, the monster bowed its head before Zagan. The monster waited for orders from Zagan, addressing him as its master. After the creature's words, the young man was stunned. He and the other people in the cave did not understand what was happening. He was very surprised that it bowed before him. A moment later, he realized that the monster had bowed before the seal of the demon lord. He was very surprised by this outcome. The knights cried with joy that their mistress was safe. One of them said furiously that they cared about Madame Chastel and the safety of the townspeople first and foremost, and they did not like to work together with a villain. Zagan asked to leave. The knights were very offended by the attitude of the magician. The warriors reminded Zagan that they helped them get out of the cave. At this time, the winged girl turned to the magician. The girl said that the two of them, the magician and Nephi, should discuss everything. After these words, the woman flew to the knights and said goodbye to the guys, leaving Nephi in bewilderment and Zagan in thought. Zagan turned to Barbaros and asked if he wanted to continue. Barbaros asked sadly what he expected from him after meeting this creature. He remembered how the monster had returned somewhere, most likely back to its world, when Zagan gave the order. Barbaros stood up from the ground and began to recall Zagan's words. He asked if he should bring a drink as an apology. Zagan smiled and confirmed his words. and added that he expected a drink of the highest quality from him. Barros looked sadly at the boys and used disappearance spells. His disappearance slightly discouraged Zagan and Nephi. The boys were left alone. Zagan realized his situation and blushed. Nephi turned to the owner, which left the latter dumbfounded. He didn't know what to do or what to say. Nephi calmly said that she wanted to be near her master. Her words surprised Zagan a little. The young man reminded her that she shouldn't force herself, and asked if the girl was sure of her decision. Nephi pressed her hand to her heart and replied that she wouldn't mind if it was him. Zagan looked at the thoughtful elf. The hero looked at Nephi as she watched the sunset and assumed that she had become much stronger. Zagan turned around and said that everything would be different now. His words surprised Nephi a little. Zagan got down on one knee and said that he wanted her to call him by his name from now on, not master. Nephi looked at her master in surprise. The young man added sheepishly that he did not want her to be his slave, servant, and student. He said that he wanted exactly this kind of relationship between them. His words confused the girl. Nephi pressed her hand to her heart and began to speak hesitantly. Zagan added sheepishly that this was exactly the kind of relationship he wanted. The young man bowed his head to the girl and tried several times to say something to her in confusion. After several attempts, Zagan screamed and stood up from his knees, which greatly surprised his companion. Zagan came closer to the girl and took her by the shoulders. The young man said in confusion that she belonged to him forever, until death do them part, and even after death. His words greatly confused Nephi. After these words, Zagan became desperate and stepped aside. Zagan did not understand why he could not simply say, "I love you." Nephi smiled. After that, she happily replied that she agreed. The girl's smile surprised the young man greatly. Nephi began to search for something in the pocket of her work dress. The girl took out a collar from the dress and asked Zagan to put it on her again. Her words greatly surprised the young man. He said that it was terrible, because it was a slave collar. The elf looked at the collar and said that there was nothing terrible about it. She almost called the young man her master, but quickly came to her senses. Nephi came closer to the hero and told him that this was what connected them, and called the young man by name. Zagan listened attentively to his companion. Zagan smiled and placed his hands on Nephi's shoulders. Nephi awkwardly said that it was rather strange to call it an engagement ring. Nephi and Zagan looked at each other. After that, Nephi asked what kind of relationship they were in, if she was not a slave, a servant, or a student. Her words left Zagan stunned. Zagan froze in bewilderment. He himself would like to know this. Nephi silently looked at the hero. Zagan put his hand to his embarrassed face. The hero realized that he, the Lord of Demons, had taken an elf slave as his wife. He did not know how to love her. Nephi and Zagan looked at the distant sun together. Zagan wished someone would tell him about it. Meanwhile, life was in full swing in the city. The men in the tavern were having a good time, and one of them asked his interlocutors if they had heard about the new ruler. His interlocutor asked if he was talking about the magician who lived in the Lost Forest. He also noticed that this magician had a creepy face. At this time, the man on the street wondered if he was the Lord of Kyanid, since the magician was the heir of Marchosis. His interlocutor replied that lately he even dropped in to buy some things. The boy standing next to them agreed with the second man's statement, and noted that the magician always brought a cute elf with him. The boy ran into someone and apologized. Behind the boy stood a huge lizard in armor and a black cloak. The men apologized to the lizard and ran away in fear. The unknown lizard noticed that a new demon lord had appeared. Zagan was in the library, holding one of the many books in his hands. His lord's seal gave a signal. Zagan noticed it and remembered the monster. He understood that in this world there was something called a demon, and there was a seal before which he bowed. Zagan concluded that, after half a month of research, he had not found any leads among the population of Marchosis. Zagan continued to stand in front of the library wall, lost in thought. The door to the room opened behind him. Nephi entered the library and began to stealthily approach Zagan. Nephi suddenly grabbed Zagan by the back and asked him to guess who it was. Zagan did not react to her attempt to scare her. The young man turned towards the girl and looked at her. The elf froze in bewilderment. After that, she blushed and asked what she should do. Zagan replied that he didn't know what to do either. He asked her with a sullen expression what she would gain by doing this. Nephi said, confused, that she had hoped to scare him. Nephi added, confused, that Zagan had looked tired lately, so she hadn't even thought about it. Zagan, in his most sullen mood, noted that she wanted to cheer him up and added that it was very sweet. The young man told himself that he really wanted to hug her and asked if she wanted something. Nephi remembered something. The elf took the young man to the kitchen and told him that their dinner was ready. There was a sumptuous dinner on the table. Zagan looked at the prepared food with surprise. He noticed that Nephi's cooking was becoming more and more varied. Nephi said they had a tomato and green salad with Caesar dressing and grated cheese for starters, and rye buns. Zagan pointed out that they had oatmeal consommé for starters and braised lamb for the main course. The young man broke the tasty bun in half and ate a piece of it. After he tasted the dish, he and Nephi exhaled with pleasure. Nephi and Zagan were sitting at the table. The young man said that he had never thought that food could be so delicious. Nephi replied that Zagan said this every time Zagan was eating his delicious lunch. Nephi added that she had made egg pudding for dessert. Her words caught Zagan's attention. Nephi said that Manuela had taught her this. It was made by mixing eggs and sour cream over a fire. Nephi remembered how they tried on outfits and told Zagan that in exchange for the recipe, Manuela had asked her to try on a couple of revealing outfits. Zagan replied that this was exactly what scared him. Nephi noted that there was nothing scary about it. Zagan said that this was not the problem. In front of the young man lay a delicious dessert. Zagan put a spoon with dessert in his mouth and noticed that it looked like a boiled egg. The taste of the dessert amazed the young man. He stood up from his chair and shouted how delicious it was. His words made Nephi happy. Zagan was in ecstasy from the taste of the dish. He noticed how big the world was, and also noticed that he never thought there was anything sweet. After that, Zagan looked away warily. The barrier of his castle was broken. Zagan wondered who it could be and suggested that he needed to meet a guest. Nephi did not understand what was happening and looked at the gentleman warily. Zagan told the girl that she should not worry about it. After that, a huge lizard, previously encountered by the townspeople on the street, broke through the wall of his castles. The lizard was destroying the wall of the castle. Nephi looked at this with caution. Zagan said that this guest was very impatient. The young man noted that the scoundrel was able to bypass all the traps and praised the visitor's skills. A huge lizard in armor entered the dining room. He turned to the hero and asked if he was the new demon lord. Zagan replied that before asking anything, he should introduce himself, and remembered that they had met at the auction. This lizard was Valafar, the Ghostly, one of the candidates for the title of Demon Lord. The lizard angrily declared that he would now crush Zagan and take his power for himself. Zagan angrily replied that he was currently having lunch and ordered Valafar to wait until he finished. Nephi glanced from Zagan to Valafar in confusion. She said that she could cook more. Zagan, continuing to eat his lunch, replied that he would be only too happy, but right now he did not want to tear himself away from his meal. Valfar released his sharp claws and rushed at Zagan, telling him that he should not underestimate him. The lizard's blow hit the mage's hand, which did not bother the latter. Zagan realized that this hand was clearly not magic. Valifar prepared to deliver a powerful blow to Zagan. The young man, in a rage, said that he had warned the lizard and ordered him to stop because the dirt could get on his food. The young man dealt a crushing blow to his opponent and threw him aside. 195. Zagan realized that he had said out loud what he thought. He thought that in the future there would only be more uninvited guests, and he might need to strengthen the defense of his domain. At that moment, Valafar had already fallen to the floor. The helmet flew off the enemy's head, which attracted Nephi's attention. She came closer, which attracted Zagan's attention. He told Nephi to leave him alone, because he would not wake up. Nephi replied that this was not the case. It turned out that the armor was clad in a little girl with horns. Nephi said that she was just a child. The sight of the girl surprised Nephi and Zagan. Manuela was holding underwear in her hands and asked about dessert. Nephi hid behind the curtain, covering her naked body. She said with a smile that she wanted to cook something new for Mr. Zagan. Manuela coquettishly replied that it was a great idea, and she would help Nephi with her idea, because she tried on her outfits. After that, Manuela took the note and asked Nephi if she could read. Nephi answered positively. She added that Mr. Zagan had taught her not only magic, but also reading. The girl said that this was great news and gave Nephi a dessert recipe. The note was filled with all sorts of nonsense that Nephi couldn't understand. Manhua laughed and then gave the girl a normal recipe. In front of Nephi and Zagan lay the body of the defeated enemy. The magician realized that she was only a child. After that, he realized that he had knocked out the child and coughed uncertainly. Zagan pointed his finger at the enemy and asked Nephi not to worry, because he had a cold medicine somewhere. Nephi asked the young man to calm down and said that the medicine would not help here. The magician picked up the girl and carried her into another room. He said with displeasure that this intruder was causing a lot of trouble. His decision surprised Nephi, and she smiled at him. She went with him and told the young man that he was very kind. Zagan did not understand what she was talking about. After some time, the girl woke up in bed. Zagan and Nephi were sitting next to her. She didn't understand where she was. When she saw them, she was very surprised. The girl jumped up from the bed and hit Zagan in anger. The magician calmly blocked her blow and said that it was better to thank Nephi, because if it weren't for her, he would have beheaded her long ago and thrown her far away. The girl was horrified by what she heard. She lowered her hand down. He knew he could never do such a thing in front of Nephi. Zagan asked her arrogantly why she had come here and attacked him. The girl frowned and replied that she wanted to become stronger because she was weak. Zagan calmly confirmed that strength was indeed necessary to survive. He asked why she chose him out of so many people. The girl sadly replied that he had only recently become a ruler, and since he was called a mage killer, he must be weak against those who were not mages. Zagan confirmed her words and said that he cannot suppress the abilities of other races that are not magic. Nephi looked at the mage, and he gave the example of strong claws, and then light. Zagan looked at the girl and assumed that she was a dragon. His assumption shocked the girl. Zagan noted that some dragons were still alive, and added that her strength would grow with age. Zagan noticed that she was behaving very strangely, but he did not sense any hostility or hatred in her behavior. The dejected girl sat silently opposite the magician. An idea came to Zagan's mind. He realized that she was behaving exactly like he had when he had been caught stealing bread. She had found what she thought was an easy target and had rushed to attack, and had been nearly brought to tears when she had been rebuffed. This realization had made him think. After that, Zagan extended his hand towards the girl in a hostile manner and said that she had come here to challenge the demon lord and would therefore be punished. His words terrified the girl. She prepared herself for a harsh punishment, and Nephi was confused when she heard the magician's words. Zagan ordered the girl to become Nephi's assistant for 1 week. His decision greatly surprised the ladies present. Zagan sat down on a chair and thought. He figured that while she was busy, he could explain to her what was right and wrong. He might not have the skills to explain the concepts of good and evil to her, but at least he could teach her the rules that a villain should follow. The girl asked hesitantly if he would eat her. Her question greatly confused Nephi and Zagan. The girl clutched her dress in fear. She added that she had heard that people could become stronger if they ate the flesh or drank the blood of a dragon. Zagan said that such legends really existed. He understood why she hid her appearance. The magician replied arrogantly that all he would get from eating such small fry was a bad taste in his mouth. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes, which confused the magician. He tiredly put his hand to his face and said that this was why he didn't like children. The magician wondered what the elders from the slums would do in such a situation. He remembered his childhood. He remembered how, as a child, children shared bread with him. Realization came to him, and he asked Nephi if they had anything left from lunch. Nephi brought him a bowl of soup. The girl looked at the plate of food in front of her with disgust. Zagan said that it was charity when the strong showed compassion to the weak and asked the girl if she had heard of such a thing. His words angered the girl. Zagan frowned deeply and warned the girl that he could not stand people who did not appreciate food, especially the one prepared by Nephi. He was ready to kill them on the spot. His words horrified the girl. She took the spoon in her hands with displeasure and put a spoonful of soup in her mouth. Having tried the soup, she was very surprised. The girl looked at the soup and said that it was very tasty. Zagan replied offendedly that the soup was tasty because Nephi had prepared it. Nephi thanked the guest for the praise. The girl began to eat the soup with great force. Zagan and Nephi silently watched her meal. When the girl finished the soup, the magician exhaled, and the elf smiled. After that, Zagan got up from his chair and headed for the exit. Walking towards the door, the young man said that he would return to his archives and ordered the girl to begin helping Nephi as soon as she finished eating. The girl stopped Zagan and asked if he thought she might attack Nephi or run away. Zagan replied that she could do as she pleased. He added that she should understand what awaited her if she ran away from the man who knew her secret. After these words, Zagan smiled slyly and suggested that she did not fully understand something and told the girl that Nephi was much stronger than her. His answer greatly surprised the girl and made Nephi laugh. Zagan walked down the hallway. He realized that it was not for nothing that they had prepared the guest room in case Nephi's friends came. He remembered Nephi asking him about Mr. Barbaros and how he had told her that they would not let him in there. Remembering all this, Zagan remembered Chastel. He wondered if everything was okay with her after what happened. Meanwhile, in the castle, a high-ranking person asks Chastel if she is sure she won't change her mind. Chastel replied that she can't change her mind, because the magician Zagan has already saved her twice and she can't just turn a blind eye to it. Chin listened to the girl's answer and formally addressed Chastel. He announced that Chastel Lilquist would be permanently stripped of her title as captain of the Holy Knights from that moment on. His words upset Chastel. Chastel and the 3 Knights of the Azure Sky stood before the bishop. From that moment on, Chastel Lilquist was stripped of her title of captain of the Holy Knights. The knights began to beg the bishop to reverse his decision. They asked His Eminence, Clavel, to wait and pay attention to all that Chastel had achieved so far. Chastel silenced her subordinates with a shout. Chastel assumed that her renunciation of them was more important than the emergence of a new demon lord. That meant that the church only needed to kill Zagan to demonstrate its power. Chastel assumed that everything here really was already rotten and clenched her hand into a fist. The maiden realized that if she had continued to point her sword only where she was ordered and not to say everything openly but acted more covertly, then everything would have been different. She remembered Zagan's words when he saved Nephi. The girl looked forward boldly and told herself that she would not compromise her principles. The bishop exhaled and said that this decision had not been easy for him. He went down to the girl and put his hand on her shoulder. The bishop asked Chastel to be patient and assured her that he would think of something. His words touched the former captain of the knights. She looked down with relief and realized that there were still people in the church who cared. The bishop added that he could only protect her from the influence of politics, but they had another problem. The old man said that the owner of the Holy Sword, Raphael Hirondella, nicknamed the Terrifying, was heading here. It was a huge, mustachioed man with heavy armor and a 2-handed sword at the ready. His words greatly surprised Chastel. Clavel suggested that Chastel must have heard of his cruelty. He said he did not know what Raphael wanted, but there were unpleasant rumors. Chastel realized that the man they called Terrifying had been sent to find her, the apostate. There was only one reason for such a meeting: elimination. Chastel was in disarray. Meanwhile, in Zagan's castle, the hero secretly watched the girl's work. He hoped that nothing bad would happen. At this time, Nephi and Valafar were hanging out the laundry. Valafar was holding a laundry basket in her hands. She asked Nephi shyly if she had made the soup herself. Nephi, hanging out the laundry, gave a positive answer. The girl shyly told her that the soup was delicious. After that, Valafar told Nephi that she could just call her Foal, which surprised the elf a little. She smiled kindly at the girl. All this time, Zagan watched and listened attentively. Nephi said that she would call her Foal, and the girl asked if she was afraid of Mr. Zagan. Foal answered that his face did not frighten her, and added that if his mouth were wider, he could even be called handsome. Her words surprised Nephi. Foal looked down and added sadly that she was afraid of his strength, because she could do nothing against him. Nephi smiled and replied that there was nothing to worry about, because he was not one to brag about his strength. Foal asked Nephi why she was here with him. The girl continued hanging out the laundry and replied that Mr. Zagan bought her, which is why she was here. After that, she noted that she considered her a person, not a slave. She also said that she felt like this was her home. Nephi turned to Foal and asked with a smile if she had such a place. Foal looked down in disappointment and gave a negative answer. Her answer surprised Nephi and made Zagan think. The young man stood behind the column and once again reminded himself why he didn't like small fry. Several days passed. Full helped Nephi with housework. She swept dust from hard-to-reach places, carried plates, and chopped vegetables. Sometimes she noticed Nephi and Zagan flirting with each other. Balafar became less wary of everything. She worked hard and did not even complain. Zagan watched her actions with caution. Zagan was sitting in his library, holding a magical grimoire in his hands. The young man looked at the book with boredom. There was no information in it that he needed. Then the hero realized that all that was left for him to do was to comb the castle of Marchosis. Zagan knew that a ruler who had lived for 1,000 years could not help but have at least the slightest interest in demons, which meant it was hidden somewhere. The young man put the book back on the shelf and thought that he could use some advice from another mage. The door to the library opened, and Foal stood behind it, informing the young man that dinner was ready. Zagan replied that he would be there soon. After that, the little one entered the room and approached the magician from behind. She asked if he was afraid that she would attack him from behind. Zagan turned around frivolously and looked at the girl. He remembered the words of his former enemy Barbaros and grinned. The mage told Foal that he had recently had a similar conversation, and then he said that his enemy could try to do this at any time. Foal listened to Zagan warily. The young man added that he would give her the same answer. Zagan said that she could attack whenever she wanted, but each time she was defeated, her punishment would increase. His answer surprised the girl. Zagan, Nephi, and Foal were having lunch together at the table. Nephi asked the girl if she liked the lunch. Foal answered positively. The little one ate her portion with gusto and turned to Zagan. She apologized for interrupting his lunch. Zagan sighed resentfully. He was a little glad that Foal realized her mistakes. The hero assumed that Foal would cope now. He turned to Nephi. Zagan said that tomorrow he would take her with him to Marchosis Castle. His words infuriated Foal. She asked Zagan if he was laughing at her. She added that giving away all the knowledge of the Lord was almost the same thing. Foal remembered that he had recently let her into his library, which any mage valued as his own life. She angrily asked Zagan if he thought she was incapable of stealing something. The young man continued to eat his dinner calmly. He asked what would happen when she did this, and immediately added that he would not care. After that, the hero said that he himself had killed the magician who lived in this castle and seized his knowledge. Foal was completely at a loss. She awkwardly said that he had enough power to simply subdue her. Zagan replied that he did not care how many dragon years she had lived, or how skilled she was in magic. The young man added that she was just a child to him. Nephi listened calmly to their conversation. Zagan felt awkward because Nephi would actually be upset if he did that. Tears appeared in Foal's eyes. The young man jumped up from his chair and assumed that she was crying because of him. Foal paid special attention to the fact that Zagan called her a child. The magician stroked Foal's head and asked her not to cry. Zagan began to stroke Foal's head with even greater force. He suggested that they all just eat, and asked Foal to try the dishes that Nephi had prepared, assuring her that then she would stop crying. Foal wiped away her tears and said that she was not crying. Zagan sighed and sat down tiredly on a chair. He said that being the Demon Lord's minion was not so bad for her. He asked Foal what the purpose of her visit was, since there were not many fools who would want to contradict him. Foal stood silently in front of Zagan. The young man added that she could address him as you. Foal replied, confused, that Zagan could call her Foal. Her statement slightly surprised the young man and pleased Nephi. After a while, Foal fell asleep. Zagan noted that the girl fell asleep right after lunch, and even though she is a dragon, a child remains a child. Nephi added that Mr. Zagan convinced her that they are not her enemies, and therefore she calmed down. She remembered those days, and freely said that when she first came here, she felt the same way. Zagan replied, confused, that it was because she belonged to him, and he was worried about his things. After his words, Zagan became very depressed. The young man realized that he had called her a thing again. Nephi said, confused, that she was aware of this and thanked the master. Later, Zagan noticed that Foal was holding a spoon in his hands. The young man took the spoon out of the sleeping girl's hands, and she grabbed his fingers. In a dream, the girl turned to her father, which greatly surprised Zagan and Nephi. The hero suggested that she was dreaming about her parents, and Nephi noticed the fingers clenched by Foal. This made Nephi laugh, and Zagan didn't know how to react to it. After that, the girl thoughtlessly said that they really did have a child. Her words confused Zagan very much. He focused on the child that Nephi said. After a few seconds, Nephi realized her words and began to feel embarrassed. Nephi, extremely embarrassed, said that she did not mean anything wrong and, in confusion, added that he was like a guardian or protector to her. Zagan awkwardly replied that he understood everything and that she didn't need to worry. Zagan and Nephi looked at the floor in confusion. The elf's face was covered in a blush. She awkwardly took Zagan by the sleeve. The young man was in great confusion. He was replaying the conversations about his family and his child in his head. He realized that a ruler who longed for such ordinary happiness was ridiculous. After that, he took Nephi's hand. He hoped that someday they would find this happiness. Manuela was very happy about something. She was in Kianita's studio. In front of her was Foal, in a cute outfit with a hood imitating a cat's head. Manuela rushed to hug Foal. She praised herself for her excellent choice of clothes and really wanted to take Foal home with her. Zagan began to take the girl away from the wing girl, asking her to calm down and noting that Foal was not a thing. As he left the store, Zagan remembered that before heading to Marchosa's castle, they had decided to buy clothes for Foal, since she couldn't wander around in armor, and under the armor she only had underwear. After leaving Manuela's shop, Zagan said that this was why he didn't like her shop. Nephi replied that she thought it was the right decision to come in. Manuela happily waved her hand at her friends as they left. Nephi drew the boys' attention to something. She pointed to Foal, who was very pleased with her purchase. She drew the young man's attention to the girl's joy, after which the latter turned to him and thanked him. Zagan awkwardly replied that there was nothing to thank him for. After that, Foal took the young man's hand. Little Foal demurely grabbed Nephi and Zagan in her arms. This surprised them slightly. This feeling caused confusion in the young man. Zagan realized that this feeling was different from his feelings for Nephi and that there was something warm in it. After these thoughts, the young man was very surprised. He looked at Foal and assumed that this was the same desire to protect. Zagan, Nephi, and Foal walked down the street holding hands, which attracted the attention of the locals. Zagan knew that if Barbaros found out, he would think he had completely lost his mind. Meanwhile, Chastel was also outside, sighing sadly. She thought about how stupid she had been. Her holy sword had been taken away, as well as her armor. She realized that because of her removal, they had to put off forming a squad to eliminate the Demon Lord for quite some time. Although even so, she probably wouldn't hear about it. She resigned herself to it, and realized that she still wanted to do something to help them. Chastel hesitantly placed a hand on her shoulder, and wondered where she got this desire from. Chastel wanted them to live peacefully and become a happy family. She did not want to interfere between them. Chastel hoped that the boys would remember her and recall her from time to time. That would be enough for her. The girl imagined their future child, her funeral, and grave. These thoughts brought tears to her eyes. Chastel continued walking through the city. She confidently said that Zagan would become a loving father. Such was his aura. Zagan and his company walked in front of her. Chastel confirmed her own words and looked at her acquaintances walking towards her. Zagan, Nephi, Foal, and Chastel crossed paths. Chastel was very surprised by their appearance. Zagan turned his attention to the former captain of the Knights. Foal did not understand what was happening. Chastel asked Zagan and Nephi, embarrassed, when they had already managed to have a child. Her question greatly embarrassed the couple. Zagan shouted at Chastel not to say such shamelessness out loud. His answer surprised the girl greatly. Foal asked Zagan who this girl was and pointed to the embarrassed Chastel. Her question slightly discouraged the young man and he apologized, and then thought about it. He looked at Chastel and asked her who she was. His question hurt the girl to the depths of her soul, and she burst into tears. Chastel was despondent. She did not understand why Zagan did not remember her at all. Nephi angrily turned to Zagan and told him that it was Chastel. The young man was very surprised. He could not recognize Chastel in these clothes, and without armor. He told Chastel that this was Nephi's friend, and asked the girl what she was wearing. Chastel didn't know how to answer her. Behind the girl, a cry was heard, addressing her. It was the trio of knights of the azure sky. One of the knights told his mistress that it was dangerous to walk here alone. After that, he noticed Zagan and became upset. Zagan was not happy to see them either, calling the knights the three idiots of the azure sky. The trio of warriors corrected Zagan and asked him, confused what Zagan wanted to do with Madame Chastel. Their question left the young man confused. Foal glared at the warrior, which Zagan quickly noticed. The young man noticed how the girl prepared for battle and used her skill. He ordered her to stop. Foal glared. She asked the young man why she shouldn't attack the offenders. Zagan replied that there were plenty of Nephi's acquaintances here and there would be unnecessary victims. His words calmed the girl down a little. The knights took their mistress away from Zagan and asked her to be more careful in the future. Chastel resisted the warrior's actions. Zagan and company watched him silently. Nephi worriedly asked if everything would be okay with Chastel. Zagan replied that he had no idea, but it seemed that she had plenty of admirers, which meant she had someone to rely on. Zagan understood that by contacting the magician she would only harm herself. The hero turned his attention to Foal and asked her what she had done wrong with the knights. Foal glared at the young man and asked what was strange about the mage not being able to stand the holy knights. Zagan replied that it was quite normal. The mage's company and Chastel parted ways. Zagan hoped that this would not lead to problems in the future. After some time, they found themselves in front of the castle. The sight of the fortress delighted Foal. She was surprised that such a huge thing was underground. Zagan replied that this fortress used to be above her, but then, probably by the magic of Marchosis, the castle was moved here. Foal looked at Marchosis with admiration. This fortress seemed very familiar to Foal. The girl went forward to the castle, which caused Zagan surprise. The little one came up to the castle wall and said that dragons once lived here. Her words surprised the young man. Foal added that this cave was similar to the one where she used to live, and there was the same smell of magic. Her answer made the young man a little happy. Zagan asked to inform him about everything in the castle that was connected with dragons, and added that she could take any books that she liked. Foal agreed with his proposal. The trio opened the front door and saw a long, dark corridor ahead of them. Foal and Nephi were wary, but Zagan felt completely calm. They walked forward down the corridor. The knocking in the front hall frightened Nephi, and she grabbed Zagan by the clothes. The young man took the elf's hand. Foal drew her friend's attention to something strange. In front of them stood a giant stone statue of an incomprehensible creature. Zagan replied that it was a golem or chimera, a magical creature. Nephi suggested that it might be guarding this place. Zagan replied that this was entirely possible, but it seemed to have frozen with the death of Marchosis. The young man added that it would be better for them not to touch the creature again. Suddenly, it would come to life and go berserk. He led his companions further. The group left the creatures behind and headed down another corridor. Along the way, Foal noticed something. The girl pointed her finger at the magic circle and asked Zagan if it would do. The young man was surprised by her question and asked the little one again. Foal replied that it was the formula of dragons. Her answer greatly surprised Zagan. Foal added that Zagan asked to tell him about everything. For this, the magician stroked the girl on the head and praised her. Foal immediately approached Nephi and boasted that she had been praised. The young man looked thoughtfully at the circle. Zagan asked Foal if she knew what it was for. The girl suggested that it could be a door. After that, the hero asked her if she could activate it. The girl happily confirmed his words. Foal came closer to the circle and activated it. Nephi started to stare at Zagan, which attracted his attention. The young man asked the girl what was bothering her. The elf became embarrassed. The girl's confused look alerted the hero and made him blush slightly. He assumed that Nephi also wanted something, and a second later he figured it out. Zagan put his hand forward and sternly ordered Nephi to freeze in place. The young man suddenly stroked Nephi on the head. The girl was surprised by the guy's decision. She was happy with Zagan's action. The boy guessed that Nephi had become a little jealous when he had praised Foal, although nothing of the sort happened when we were alone. Zagan enjoyed stroking Nephi's contented head. The couple caught Foal's gaze and quickly came to their senses. The young man asked the girl what she needed. Foal answered boringly that she had opened the door. Embarrassed Nephi silently looked at the floor, and the confused Zagan praised Foal. The trio went down the stairs. Foal walked in front, and Zagan and Nephi held hands as they went down. When the trio got down, they saw a black door in front of them. Zagan opened the door. He smiled contentedly as he opened the door in front of him. It was a gigantic library. The young man said that they had finally found what they were looking for. Nephi and Foal looked around the room in awe. The hero ordered Nephi to collect all the books that were mentioned by the demon or that had the seal of the ruler on them. Full asked if he could read minds. Zagan asked why she came to that conclusion. Full remembered how Zagan stroked Nephi's head and said that he knew about Nephi's wish, even though she hadn't told him anything. Zagan calmly replied that Nephi always knew what he wanted. The young man added that if he couldn't guess even such a small detail, he would be ashamed. Full replied that this even made her a little jealous. Zagan noticed that Full was speaking as if he wasn't talking about her. Full was surprised by what the young man said. He added that he didn't know exactly how long dragons lived, but Marchoses had lived for over 1,000 years. Zagan said that in 1,000 years she herself will learn to understand everything without words. Full looked at the boy in surprise. The girl set aside a period of 1,000 years and asked if Zagan would always be with her. The young man calmly replied that if she wanted to go somewhere, he would not stop her. Full grabbed the hero's hand and pressed herself against him. She said that she did not want to go anywhere. Zagan noted that he himself was not very good at it. Full noticed a book on the shelf opposite her. She took out the book 12 Holy Swords. The title of the book caught the attention of the young man. Zagan snatched the book from the girl's hands, which made the girl very unhappy. What he saw in the book amazed Zagan. His guesses were confirmed. He realized that the symbols engraved on the holy swords were the same as those on the seal of the Lord. Zagan realized that he had previously felt that he had seen the symbols from the seal of the demon lord somewhere. The young man happily noted that the symbols were not identical, but they seemed to have a common origin. The hero realized that if he studied the holy swords, he would learn all about the seal of the demon lord. Zagan praised Full for her discovery. Meanwhile, in the main church of the city, Shastel and the Trinity of the Holy Knights of the Azure Sky stood in front of an unknown figure. Shastel meekly said that it was an honor for her to meet the captain of the Holy Knights. Raphael Herandel stood before her. Raphael looked angrily at the girl and asked if she was the one called the Maiden of the Holy Sword. He said he had heard about her punishment for disobedience. Herandella noted that the girl looked quite good. Raphael asked how many mages the girl had killed. His question discouraged Shastel. She realized that he had decided to get straight to the point. The girl realized that Raphael Herandella, the knight who had killed more mages than anyone else, was the man who would gladly deal with an apostate like her. Shastel decided that she would stand her ground. She replied that she did not consider it something to brag about. Her words deeply hurt Raphael. The three knights asked the lady to choose her words, for even their worthless lives would not protect them for long. One of them called the other two cowards, for they had sworn to protect her to the end. Raphael smiled and then laughed loudly. He said that no one had spoken to him like that for a long time, especially a woman. She was the first one so brave. After these words, he added that she would be able to boast of this in the afterlife, and looked at the girl furiously. The knights blocked Raphael's path to the girl and asked Shastel to run. Suddenly, the bishop entered the hall and addressed Raphael. He asked him what he was doing with his knights. His appearance surprised the three knights of the Azure Sky and Shastel. Raphael slowly turned to face the priest. He glared at Clavel and said that he had no concern for him, a man with only a title. Clavel replied that maybe that was true, but it was his duty to protect these knights. Raphael walked menacingly towards the old man and asked him if they had taken the holy sword from her. After that, he asked where it was. His question stunned the bishop, who asked what Raphael was going to do when he found out. Fiorndel replied that he was going to do exactly what he thought, and clarified that the holy sword itself chooses its owner, and until that owner dies, no one else can use it. After this, Raphael pointed his finger at the girl and suggested executing Shastel as an alternative. This greatly surprised the girl. The old man shouted that this was outrageous impudence. Raphael answered menacingly that it was true, and that a priest had no right to tell the owner of a sword how to use it. Shastel said that Mr. Raphael was being too generous, and that if the sword owners used them as they pleased, they would be no different from bandits. Raphael turned his gaze angrily to the girl. The paladin reached for his sword and noticed that the girl had contradicted him for the second time. His behavior frightened Shastel. Raphael took out his sword and told Clavel that his ward was about to lose her life. Clavel reported that he understood Raphael's hint and ordered Shastel to follow him. Clavel and Shastel went to the church treasury. The girl was stopped at the entrance by guards. The priest took something out of the room. The bishop was holding the sacred sword in his hands. The old man gave the sword to the maiden and said that he was not sure whether it was worth returning to its owner and that it would only give Raphael a reason to attack. He added that he believes that Chastel has the strength to overcome any obstacle. Chastel took the holy sword in her hands and reported that she had understood the saint's plan. The girl understood that this Raphael had forced them to return the sword to her. She did not know what her formidable comrade had actually planned. After some time in the tavern, someone laughed very loudly in Zagan's face, which made the guy lose his temper. They asked Zagan if he really had a child. The young man sadly asked how he knew about it. After they had searched the castle, Barbaros called him to a meeting, and so he was back in town. Barbaros haughtily told about the rumors of how Zagan had kidnapped this child. Zagan angrily headed towards the exit, expressing his desire to leave quickly. Barbaros grabbed him by the cloak and asked him to relax, because he got him a drink. As he asked, drunk Barbaros asked his friend if he would tell about her. Zagan realized the state of his drinking companion and answered that Barbaros also knew her. His answer surprised Barbaros very much, and he asked if she was also a magician. Barbaros began to consider the options, realizing that this was a female mage. He assumed that it could be Gamori the Temptress, but immediately noticed that she did not like men. Zagan drank his drink calmly. He thought that if Barbaros didn't understand, then the others shouldn't guess that Fol was Valafar and she was a dragon. By this point, Barbaros had already guessed. Barbaros said it was Valafar, which greatly surprised Zagan. Barbaros added that he was saying this because Valafar had recently attacked him. He asked what had happened to him. Barbaros added that he was probably alive, if he was lucky. The mage assumed that Zagan had driven him out as well. After that, Barbaros said that there was a rumor that he was actually a dragon, and even his corpse could be used for excellent ingredients. Zagan looked at his interlocutor silently while drinking his drink. He realized that it was because of people like him that Fol had to hide. Barbaros decided not to think about it and asked who the girl was that he had taken in. This surprised Zagan. The hero hoped that Barbaros was not hinting that he had guessed everything. Zagan hesitantly answered that he did not know and decided that she would simply be a child that he had taken custody of. Barbaros laughed with all his might, emphasizing that Zagan had taken custody of the child. The young man realized that his drinking buddy was simply incorrigible. After this, Barbaros came to his senses and decided to change the subject. Zagan assumed that Barbaros had finally decided to talk business. Barbaros turned to him and said that he wanted to warn Zagan about a man who would soon arrive at the local church. Barbaros spoke of Raphael, the magician hunter. Rumor has it that he is called Terrifying, and there is no one who can compare to him in the number of mages killed. He has 499 murders to his credit. Barbaros smiled coquettishly and pointed his finger at Zagan and said that Raphael had decided that he would be his Jubilee 500th mage. Zagan replied that this was some kind of ridiculous story. He asked if the sword's owner could kill so many mages single-handedly. Barbaros replied that he had no idea. Barbaros added that there was a rumor that Raphael had killed and eaten a dragon. This greatly surprised Zagan. Zagan remembered Fol's words about the Holy Knights. The hero clenched his fist. Barbaros added that the church did not approve of dragon hunting, so could not be verified. Zagan replied that Barbaros was unusually talkative today. Barbaros replied that he had come to apologize and brought him the promised tribute. He hugged Zagan and added that he would rather live in peace with Zagan than be at daggers drawn. Zagan said sadly that Barbaros was very slippery and had no dignity. Barbaros smiled broadly and asked for access to Marcosi's legacy, adding that Zagan was managing it alone. Zagan gave a sharp, negative answer and looked at his interlocutor suspiciously. Zagan asked why he should give him access to Marcosi's, since Marcosi's would hide from him anything he thought useful. Barbaros agreed lightly and asked in surprise what was wrong with that. Zagan wondered how Barbaros could be so smart and stupid at the same time. The hero said that he would give Barbaros a couple of books, and that would be it. The drinking companion replied that he could do that too, and remarked on how generous his friend was. A huge man in armor entered the tavern, which confused the bar patrons. Barbaros asked quite a bit whether he would be able to choose his own books, and asked his friend not to give him any trash. After that, Zagan asked Barbaros what the knight who ate the dragon looked like. At that time, the men in armor began to gradually approach the magicians. Barbaros answered thoughtfully that he was a healthy old man with a large scar from his eyebrows to his left cheek. The man who entered the bar was Raphael. At that moment, he had already approached the magicians. Zagan was able to successfully spot him in the reflection of his glass. Zagan said that he seemed to have seen someone similar, which could be a simple coincidence. The hero's words amused Barbaros, who replied that he was very lucky, because if the knight had noticed him, he would have definitely killed him. Zagan hesitantly agreed with his words, after which a loud, deep step was heard behind the magicians. Behind the mages stood Raphael. Barbaros was very surprised by his appearance, unlike the calm Zagan. Barbaros stood up from the counter in horror when he saw Raphael Hirondelle. He asked the knight what he was doing in such a place. Zagan calmly drank his drink. Raphael was beside himself with joy. A maniac smile was visible on his face. Raphael's expression horrified Barbaros and the waitress behind him. Zagan watched the knight calmly. Barbaros screamed, preparing to strike. The tavern patrons were terrified, and the waitress behind the counter fell to the floor in horror. Barbaros cast a magic circle and prepared to strike the enemy with magic. Raphael was excited about the upcoming battle and reached for his sword with a terrifying grin on his face. Before the opponents had even had time to engage in a fight, Zagan calmly ordered the magician to stop and erased Barbaros's magic, which left the latter extremely surprised. Barbaros was not pleased that Zagan had absorbed his magic. Zagan told Raphael that there was no one there and invited him to sit with him. Raphael smiled and assumed that the new ruler was a sensible person. Raphael sat down proudly at the table. Zagan carefully watched his new interlocutor. Zagan realized that he himself had decided not to complicate things and invite him to the table. But his goal here was just to have a drink. He did not want to chat with this rude man. At this time, Raphael began to make a bunch of orders from the waitress. Zagan hoped that it would not be him who chatted with Raphael, but Barbaros, and looked away. Behind Zagan, Barbaros is healing a fainted girl at the tearful request of her father. Barbaros was unhappy that he had to do this. The magician informed the girl's father that he was strong in healing magic, but he would try. The girl's father said that he expected nothing less from the henchman of the Lord Zagan. Barbaros answered with displeasure that he was not his henchman. Zagan looked at Barbaros enviously. He did not understand why he had to use magic if she had simply lost consciousness. Raphael waited calmly. Zagan exhaled and asked his interlocutor what the Dragon Slayer wanted from him. At this time, Raphael began to be served drinks. The knight replied that he could simply call him by his name and added that he had heard about him from his comrade and decided to see for himself. Zagan mockingly asked if he missed his own reflection. Raphael haughtily replied that these words were spoken by a man whose evil grin was even rumored. Zagan said that he had heard about Raphael's hobby of killing mages, and asked what he would do since there were several of them here. Barbaros stood at the front door, thinking. The magician closed the door and slowly approached the table. Raphael and Zagan followed him with their eyes. Raphael replied that this was nonsense, and he preferred prevention to treatment. Zagan relaxed, but Barbaros was still wary. The hero introduced Raphael to others. Raphael said that he had heard about the mage's battle with Chastel and asked him if she was a worthy opponent. Zagan replied that she was the strongest of those he had fought. Upon hearing Zagan's answer, Raphael concluded that she would be a threat to the church. Zagan did not understand what he was talking about. Raphael said that she had openly opposed the murder of the demon lord, and that was enough for the church to order her execution. His words surprised Zagan. He knew that she had to do as the situation demanded, but she had once again shown unnecessary honesty. Zagan leaned sadly against the table and said that Chastel was extremely careless. He understood that such people do not live long. Raphael agreed with his words. Raphael stood up from the table and said that he had no more business with Zagan. The young man understood what he was trying to achieve. It immediately struck him as odd that he had shown no aggression. This meant he needed proof to kill Chastel. Zagan stopped Raphael at the exit. He said that in this city she is loved and some seem to mourn her. Zagan seriously stated that all of this was his domain, and if Raphael did anything, he would wipe him off the face of the earth. Raphael arrogantly reminded him that Zagan was a demon lord. Zagan replied that this was precisely why it hurt his pride. Raphael smiled and laughed loudly. The knight said that the magician was exactly as he had imagined. He added that Zagan was the evil that drove the church crazy. The doors closed. The visitors looked nervously at the departed Raphael. Barbaros and Zagan silently looked at the doors. Zagan told Barbaros that he didn't like Raphael, to which he replied that it was natural for a magician. Barbaros suggested that his friend catch up and kill him. Zagan said that this was exactly what he could do. He told Barbaros to get down to business. The drinking companion grabbed Zagan by the cloak and was indignant that he wanted to send him to slaughter. Barbaros angrily asked what Zagan wanted. Zagan jokingly replied that he wanted him to die soon and asked Barbaros to keep an eye on Chastel. Barbaros asked why him. Zagan asked if he cared. Barbaros is called Purgatory in legends, the place between heaven and hell. He can move freely through such a dimension. Zagan understood that teleportation and summoning were Barbaros' strong point. He could only move to someone else's shadow once he saw it. In a direct comparison of strength, he was superior to Zagan. Barbaros asked if Zagan had decided to save the Holy Knight. Zagan replied that he would repay Barbaros later and urged him on. Barbaros began to teleport and said that the hero would definitely regret it. When Barbaros left, Zagan realized that he had not paid for himself. After some time, Zagan returned home, where he was met by Nephi. The magician was surprised that the girl was still awake. Nephi reported that Foal had insisted that they wait while cleaning. Zagan noticed that Foal herself had fallen asleep. Nephi reported that Foal had told her that Zagan would be with her even after 1,000 years, and she was glad to hear it. The young man stroked Foal's head. He realized that in legends, there were dragons who lived for tens of thousands of years. It would probably be difficult for them to find someone who would be with them for life. And therefore, for a small dragon to lose his parents would be terrible. Nephi sadly said that she too wished that they could always be together. Zagan did not understand what she was talking about, because he would be next to her. His words made the girl happy. Zagan quickly approached the girl, their eyes meeting. The young man realized that she had very long eyelashes and that she had recently taken a bath, as her hair was damp and she smelled of soap. Nephi looked at the hero in surprise. Zagan put his hand on the girl's face, and their lips began to gradually move closer. After this, a portal of Barbaros suddenly opened in the room, from which the magician shouted that they had problems. The couple awkwardly moved away from each other. Barbaros was angry that Zagan did not answer him. Zagan stood angrily in front of Barbaros and ordered him to come over so he could be minced. Barbaros didn't understand what he was angry about. The magician reminded him with displeasure that Zagan himself had asked him to look after Chastel. He was holding the girl in his arms. This greatly surprised the young man and Nephi. They were discouraged by Chastel's condition. Barbaros said that she was poisoned, and the poison was most likely mixed into the drink. Zagan said that he would quickly start treating her and asked Nephi to help him. Foal woke up because of the extraneous noise. The mage apologized and asked her to go back to sleep. Foal noticed Chastel's holy sword. She realized that Chastel was a holy knight. She activated her ability and rushed at the girl in anger. This greatly surprised Barbaros, who was holding her in his arms. Zagan stopped Foal's shot. The girl was unhappy that he stopped her again. The magician replied that Chastel was his guest and she should not kill her just like that. Barbaros began to heal Chastel. The girl stood there in anger. Zagan asked how much she hated the holy knights. She replied that Zagan himself knew that she became a mage to take revenge on the holy knights. After all, the owner of this sword killed her father. Zagan said he understood the girl's feelings and assumed it was not her. He added that by killing her, she would not harm her enemies, but would simply create new ones who would take the path of revenge. Foal angrily replied that it was a rookie mistake, and he could not know anything about it. Zagan extended his hand to the girl and said that this was not revenge. He added that revenge is when you make them suffer, when you drive them into such depths of despair and horror that they themselves beg you for death. His moralizing surprised Nephi and Foal. Zagan added that only later, having enjoyed herself to her heart's content, would she kill him. Only murder would not satisfy her. Foal asked hesitantly if Zagan had ever taken revenge on anyone. He answered positively, remembering Andrus and telling the girl that he had failed. The young man added that he would therefore teach her how to take revenge properly, and that she was lucky because there were plenty of torture instruments here. After these words, the girls were even more surprised. Zagan came to his senses. Barbaros, who was holding Chastel in his arms, stood up and asked if it was okay to tell such a thing to his adopted daughter. Chastel opened her eyes and was tired. She sat up in bed and touched herself. Zagan was reading a book and said casually that she had finally woken up. The girl jumped up on the bed when she saw the guy. He said to thank Nephi later because she was the one who dealt with the poison. Shastel asked again, and he asked her if she didn't remember. The girl understood everything. She received a letter with an invitation from an anonymous person. The girl asked in surprise, the Unity faction. The man in the cloak said that the church's task should be to contain the mages, not to destroy them. This was what their group members believed. The man offered to join them, because now that she had gone against the will of the church, she did not need protection. The girl thought that maybe it was Clavel's subordinate. The stranger said that it was not necessary to decide right now, but she should not delay with the answer. As a proof of sincerity, she could say it in the hour of need. Orobas. The girl asked if that was his name. The man said she could think so, but at the same time, no. For her, it was more like the name of the one who was leading them. It would protect her in any situation. The man left, and the girl was left alone. She didn't know if she should trust him. If she wanted to survive, her options were slim, especially with Raphael nearby. And yet, she had known little life other than that of a knight, and now she had lost her home. She had nowhere to return to. Even if she survived, she did not know what to do next. The girl was drinking tea while sitting at the table, and suddenly she felt wrong and dropped the mug. Chastel continued to say that she had returned to the church, had some tea, and then collapsed. Zagan asked if she had any idea who might have poisoned her. She had no idea. She might have thought it was Mr. Raphael. The guy continued, "This old man looks more like he likes to swing a sword than try to poison." The girl asked if he met Raphael. He was disturbing her rest. The guy said that since she was Nephi's friend, they would help her until she recovered. She tried to stop Zagan by grabbing his cloak. The girl pulled her hand away in fear when the guy turned around. He wondered what she wanted. She hesitated and asked him to stay for a while. Zagan told her to ask Nephi for something like that. The girl became noticeably sad and sat down on the bed, apologizing. The guy stopped, and he sat down in the chair with his back to her. He said that Nephi shouldn't be woken up in the middle of the night, and he would just read here. Chastel apologized again. She didn't understand what she really wanted. The girl thought that she wanted him to just look at her. But she immediately threw these thoughts away. She wanted happiness for Zagan and Nephi and did not want to interfere between them. She probably just wanted to be a part of this picture of happiness. She wondered what form she would take if she got into this picture. Chastel was confused and didn't understand what this uniform had to do with it. Nephi said that it suited the girl. Chastel reminded him that she was the maiden of the Holy Sword and did not understand why she had to be a servant. Zagan told her to watch her language, because even she would not be forgiven if she upset Nephi. The girl began to justify herself and asked him not to be so callous. Foal appeared behind Zagan. Chastel realized that this was Zagan's adopted daughter and tried to say that it was nice to meet her, but the girl interrupted her, telling her not to talk to her and calling her horse-headed. Chastel didn't understand what she had done to her. Zagan said that her father had been killed by the owner of the Holy Sword. It wasn't her fault, but the girl didn't care. He hoped the girl would understand. Chastel thought it would be better if she left. Zagan told her to just leave her alone for a while. That pride would keep her from hurting the girl. As he thought, a cry of anger rang out in the quiet castle. The guy sat on the chair and thought about what would happen now. Chastel screamed because there was a frog in the house. Zagan laughed because it was the third time in an hour. The girl asked him not to laugh because he himself had spoken of her pride. The boy thought that Valiford decided that she could joke then. It was expected. Chastel said that he was spoiling her. The girl was his enemy, but he treated her differently. Zagan said that he felt guilty in front of her. He did not touch the girl. Chastel asked him to hit her, but she didn't like pain and was ready to endure it for the sake of such treatment. The guy narrowed his eyes and understood what her hobbies were. The girl screamed that it wasn't so. Before she could finish speaking, Foal threw frogs at her, causing her to scream again. Zagan thought that she was clumsy by nature. He didn't quite understand and asked if she was feeling better. Chastel was encouraged by this question, thinking that he was worried about her. He answered ambiguously. Time passed, and Foal's tricks became more and more frequent. The girl sat with a bucket on her head, and the little girl ran away from the scene. Mischief during meals was forbidden, so Valever would sneak into the bath when the girls were taking it and scare Chastel, who would scold her. But the girl was unperturbed. The girl's cries and screams echoed throughout the castle every day. After all this, maybe they could get along someday. Fowl was lying on the floor. She stood up, turned around, thinking that Dad was there. She called him, but he didn't answer. Daufer saw her father's last fight. He was defeated, and the girl was scared. She was very angry at her father for leaving her. The girl exhaled, trying to catch her breath, grabbed the edge of her collar, and left the room. Chastel lay on her bed and dreamed of frogs. She tried to get rid of them. Suddenly, Foal raised her hand over the girl. Her hand had claws. She was very angry. In the end, the girl patted Chastel on the cheek. She was still sleeping. Valifer was upset, because the girl should get angry and attack her, maybe even use a sword. Foal left the bed upset. Zagan was sitting on the throne. Nephi was running towards him and shouting his name. The guy immediately came down. The girl was trying to catch her breath. He asked her what happened. As it turned out, Foal was missing. The girl stood in front of a huge castle. This was the Demon Lord's castle. She thought that maybe she could find the power to destroy the sword owners here. She put her hand on the door and remained silent. Zagan's castle. She liked how he stroked her head and how tightly Nephi's arms hugged her. And even the horse-headed girl is strange, but she has no reason to take revenge. But if she stayed with them, she would forget about her revenge. Was she really that worthless? It seemed nonsense to her. She would never forget. She would never let this hatred fade away. Didn't she see it with her own eyes? Her father flew away with the holy knights and never returned, and then she went looking for him. But she found only a body with a holy sword pierced through it. This was how people repaid their father, who had taught them, who had shared knowledge with them. She hit the door with her fist. The holy knights betrayed the wise dragon Orolbas, and she had no right to forget it, never. She remembered Zagan's words that in 1,000 years, she herself would learn to understand everything without words. Foal thanked Zagan and Nephi and apologized to them. Because she can't stop, there was a man standing behind the girl. She turned around and saw him, realizing that she was being followed. It was Raphael. The girl was shocked. Valifer remembered him. But the man did not remember her. He did not remember that they knew each other. The girl began to transform into a dragon, and Raphael immediately understood who she was. The man took out his sword. The girl did not have time to react before he swung the sword. After all, the owner of the sword is not one of those who is worth fighting without preparation. The sword was approaching the girl, and she was only trying to pronounce the name of Zagan. As the sound came, Zagan said maybe he told her she could do whatever she wanted, but he didn't remember letting her stay out late. Raphael was annoyed that he agreed to stop his attack since Zagan was a demon lord. Foal tried to find out why he went after her, but the guy interrupted her, saying that there was a good courier nearby and he delivered it to her. Barbaros said that he was definitely not good and certainly not a courier. The girl shouted that it was not about that. After all, she betrayed him, but he still came. She didn't understand why he was doing this. Zagan put his hand on her head and told her not to worry about little things. Foal became noticeably sad. The girl's wings began to evaporate. She pressed herself against the demon and began to cry. She began to apologize. Zagan was glad he made it. Nephi was wondering if Foal was okay, and Zagan told her that he would return as soon as he finished his business here. He also asked her to wait for him at the castle. The girl agreed. The guy continued. He reminded that he warned Raphael that if he did something wrong, he would wipe him off the face of the earth. The man was surprised because the one in front was Mac, who was protecting someone other than himself. Zagan told him that it was someone, his daughter. Raphael was shocked and repeated the boy's words. He took the sword in his hands again, saying that this was a pretty good reason. The guy confirmed and warned that he would disappear if he did not fight at full strength. Raphael didn't really want to do it, but he had to. After all, he certainly didn't intend to disappear here. He began to address the holy ball Metatron and asked him to hear his call. Zagan was surprised that Raphael used pale white flames. His magic circle began to disappear. The boy was surprised that the circle was erased. It was a purifying flame and was said to burn away all evil, and that previous rulers had been slain by it. This power was only available to the true owner of the sword. Barbaros got a little scared and turned to the guy, wondering why he had to be provoked. After all, he had promised to teach him how to take revenge properly. He had to crush the enemy at the peak of his strength. This was one way to drive him into despair. Zagan followed his advice and ran closer to his opponent. His magic circle almost disappeared, but suddenly Raphael was surprised and realized that the circle was not disappearing. Zagan said that this was not the first time his circle had been destroyed. After all, using the legacy of Marchosis, he had created a spell that could counter holy swords. This circle absorbs the flow of magic from the surrounding environment, so even the cleansing flames cannot destroy it instantly. Raphael was thrown back, and the boy continued to say that this shield was constantly becoming stronger. He decided to call it the heavenly scale. The man's strength was running out and he was thrown even further. Zagan continued that an ordinary person would have had his hands crushed, but the man didn't even drop his sword. Raphael made a sharp blow. The guy managed to jump back and a huge hole remained from the sword. Barbaros and Valifer began to cover themselves with their hands from the strong flow of wind. As a result of these battles, 2 spots on the stone caught fire. Zagan continued to press Raphael with his seal. In an instant, they were thrown apart. The man was surprised, and Zagan realized that 3 hits was the limit. It was still far from finished, but for a first attempt, it was a great result. Barbaros called the guy names because now was not the time to be daydreaming. Raphael swung his sword at the guy. He only reminded him of what he had already said. Zagan dealt a crushing blow to Raphael so that he flew off the wall and finished his sentence that he could afford to be in the clouds. Now that the cleansing flames had died down, he could use his abilities again, such as the magic he had used to finish him off. Foul clapped. The guy was quite pleased to wrestle with him, but the man was too weak. He did not believe that this was the same Raphael who defeated 100 magicians. There was one difference between mages and knights. Even one serious injury could be fatal for a knight, and he could not become more. Raphael tried to grab onto the wall, and the guy pointed at him and said that knights could not become just like him. But the man managed to get up and pointed out Zagan's great strength. And the guy was just surprised and did not understand what he was. Nephi was sitting near a black hole in the floor. Chasto came into the room and couldn't find Zagan. The girl replied that the gentleman had gone for full. Chasto paused for a moment and realized that she had to follow. But then she fell to her knees. She didn't understand what would happen next. After all, she was the one the church was trying to eliminate, and she lived under the protection of a mage they hated. Everything was going too well, but she didn't understand why she needed this sword. Nephi asked if everything was okay with Chastel, and the girl in response said that she would go to Nephi with her. And the girl answered that Mr. Zagan asked her to wait here. Chastel didn't know if this was the right time to say this, but she was a little jealous of Nephi. After all, she loves and is loved. That's why she is jealous that they have such a relationship. Nephi, in turn, envied her, on the contrary, which surprised the girl very much. Chastel laughed and did not understand what there was to envy. The girl answered that she envied her because she could be near him. Chastel was surprised and said that she should not listen to the order and run after him. But Nephi could not do that, because she has to be here when he comes back to say welcome home, Zagan. She can't be there to comfort him, to be his support. She hugged Chastel, which surprised her and made her cry. But she had no right to do this. After all, if anyone could cure his loneliness, it was she. After all, she is a holy knight. The girl raised her head and agreed. Chastel continued by saying that it was all because she refused to fight. Nephi again confirmed this. The girl still did not understand why she needed this sword and what purpose it served. She lowered her head, then raised it and said that she did not want to defeat him. She did not want to fight with him, shoulder to shoulder. Nephi sat and hugged her. She tried to calm her down, because she knew that when they first spoke, she realized that, and she understood how lonely Zagan was. And she was a little jealous, because she thought she was the only one who could do this. But at the same time, she was happy that there were others who understood him. She offered her hand to Chastel's cheek, and Chastel realized that she had become stronger. After all, she helped Zagan overcome his loneliness, and even now she was able to calm her down. Nephi asked about her condition and whether she felt better after the consolation. the girl confirmed. And she had consoled her so much. Nephi agreed and thought that she had done something wrong. But Chastel denied it. For the mages, she was an enemy, and she did not understand why she needed to be reassured. The girl looked at her in surprise. Nephi calmed her down and said that weren't they friends to calm her down. The girl's tears began to flow again, and she was glad that he really thought that about her. Chastel thanked her and realized that it was time for her to go. After all, she had nothing more to lose. And even if this choice would be the last one, she had decided what to do, and she would not hesitate any longer. Nephi smiled happily and told her to be careful. Chastel immediately jumped into the black hole, fully prepared for battle. Zagan and Raphael stood before each other in a tense atmosphere filled with anticipation and bewilderment. The man looked serious. His face was distorted with pain, and he had a deep wound on his stomach from which strange smoke was coming. The blow was fatal, but he was still on his feet. The boy realized that he had acquired regeneration from the dragon. Zagan turned to Foal, saying that he would not disappear just like that. For now, she could come up with a punishment for him. The girl enthusiastically agreed. Raphael realized at that moment that he was definitely not liked here, and this feeling made him wary. Foal became serious and looked at Raphael with the same determined gaze, as if she was about to pronounce a sentence. She reminded him that the dragon he had destroyed was named Orobas the Wise, and this information made the man feel embarrassed. Alarm flared up inside him. He realized that Foal was a child of Orobas, and now he would have to destroy not only the dragon himself, but her as well. Zagan, sensing the growing tension and danger of the situation, told Raphael that he would not allow this to happen. He suddenly slammed Raphael into the floor with such force that even those around him were surprised. However, the man quickly jumped to his feet and jumped over Zagan, leaving everyone in disbelief at his agility and speed. The boy immediately realized that Raphael was not an opponent that could be easily dealt with. Foal summoned a magic circle and told him not to underestimate her. Zagan shouted at her to stop, but it was too late. Foal began to attack. She sent a magic circle towards Raphael with such force that it seemed he would not be able to dodge it, but he repelled the magic with ease and confidence. At that moment, a voice was heard calling for them to retreat. It was Chastel who approached Monsieur Raphael with an unexpected demand. Zagan and Foal were completely confused by what had happened. Barbaros realized his mistake. He forgot to remove the shadow. The boy saw how Chastel managed to simultaneously reflect Raphael's blow and Foal's magic. The girls stood there in bewilderment. There was tension in the air, and each of the participants in the fight realized the seriousness of what was happening. Chastel said that even though Foal was tirelessly plotting against her, although she admits that she herself is to blame for invading her life. But couldn't she solve everything peacefully? The girl was surprised, and Zagan told her that they should definitely talk. But first, they had to deal with Raphael. He didn't understand what he wanted to achieve. The girls turned to him in surprise. He would take no pleasure in destroying someone who was literally begging for it. The girls were even more surprised, and Raphael was furious. Foal asked what he was talking about. The boy replied that he had figured it out himself. His bloodlust disappeared when he heard the name Orobas. Chastel grabbed him and asked him to stop. She was only making things more difficult. She just needed to be quiet for a bit. She said it was hard to believe, but it was him. He was the man in the cloak who called himself Orobas. The boy was very surprised. He didn't understand what she was talking about. Zagan seemed to be depressed. Strange sounds were coming from the door. Chastel turned to the guy, but he interrupted her because he knew what was going on. Something was approaching. A stone monster appeared at their door. It was the enemy who let out a very loud cry. Zagan realized that this was the aura of a demon. He denied it because he did not feel the same terror as before, meaning this golem was created in their image. This was the guard of this castle. His seals are broken by the presence of holy swords. Raphael didn't understand who it was. A mouth began to appear from the golem's head, which suddenly opened. He started growling again, and Zagan said he was thirsty for blood, and they needed to run. A light appeared from the golem's head. Foal got caught in this beam. Zagan noticed this and started shouting in her direction. Horror appeared on the guy's face. The smoke from the light began to disperse. Barbaros and Chastel also did not understand what was happening, and the light was absorbed by Foal. As it turned out, Raphael covered the little girl with his body and it was very painful for him. Full did not understand why he covered her with his body. Zagan was gloomy. There was a stone statue behind him. He turned and told her what she thought of herself. The guy immediately used a magic circle and said that he would grind her into powder. He summoned a celestial scale that cut the golem in half. Zagan immediately ran to his daughter, afraid that something had happened. Full replied that she was fine, but Raphael's wound was too close to his heart, and even with the dragon's regeneration, he could disappear. Raphael became sad and said that she told him that he killed Orobus. Full confirmed it. The man said she was wrong, because the great dragon was not so weak that he could kill him. The girl thought he was lying, because she had seen it all. He was eating him. The man said Orobasa was not one to be defeated by betrayal. The girl did not understand what he was getting at. Raphael said that he had come that day to enlist the aid of the great dragon Orobus in battle. He heeded his request. Full asked again. The man confirmed. He was going to make an alliance with the demons, as they were called in ancient stories. Everyone was surprised, but Full asked not to talk nonsense because it was the first time she'd heard that such creatures existed. She might have a hard time believing it. He knew that. He also thought that they had long since left this world. And yet, one of them had reappeared and destroyed not only the great dragon, but also many holy knights. And, in the near future, others appeared. Full looked at Zagan in surprise, but he confirmed. He wasn't sure they would return, but they definitely existed. So he studies them and tries to figure out how to destroy them. The girl realized that her father had fought the demon and lost. Raphael said that he had not lost, he had given his life to defeat him. Full began to scream, and she did not understand who she should hate. Raphael said that, "Let her be driven by hatred, O pride, because Orobus gave his life to protect her and this world. If she is not proud of him, then no one will be." Raphael also said that if she had to destroy him to do this, he would not resist. She must remember that the demons are powerful, and if they return while the church and the mages are at odds, they won't stand a chance. They must be prepared. So even though it disgusted him, he drank Orobus's blood to survive even at that cost. Zagan asked if he was the envoy of the Unity faction that Chastel had spoken of. Raphael confirmed it. Barbaros thought that he didn't believe him. After all, hadn't he killed 100 mages with his own hands? Now he offers peace. He did not understand who would agree to this. Raphael understood this perfectly well. That is why he could not be the representative of such an alliance. That means it should be Chastel, because she was the captain of the Holy Knights, the maiden of the Holy Ball, and the one who is connected to the Demon Lord. The seed of this union had already sprouted, and if he could repay his debt to Orobus with this, then he did not need more. Chastel asked them to wait for a little while, because it was difficult for her to digest. Suddenly a sound came from the side. Chastel and Zagan were surprised. This stone golem began to resurrect. The guy realized how many immortals were roaming this world. He would deal with them again. Chastel asked if he could destroy it, and he replied that he was not an expert on golems, but if it was created by magic, then he could certainly destroy it. But Raphael said that it was not just a golem. It was created by magic, by weaving the golem with another creature that had the ability to restore itself. Zagan guessed who it was, and Raphael immediately confirmed it. It was a chimera of a demon created by Marcosios. The guy realized that he couldn't just destroy her. It was luck. He couldn't believe that he would have to test another new trick. This chimera, he was sure, was made from the remains of the demon that Raphael and Orobus had destroyed. This creature was insignificant compared to a real demon, and yet it possessed demonic power. Zagan cursed Marcosios because he created an unpleasant creature. Well, that was all the better, because he just wanted to test something. He would deal with her himself and told them to keep their distance. Chastel asked to become his blade. They stood back to each other, and the girl did not ask to trust the Holy Knight completely, but to allow him to help her in the battle. The guy didn't think she would have the guts to betray him. The girl didn't understand whether it was praise or whether he was laughing at her. But the guy didn't answer in the same way. Raphael turned to Chastel. She immediately interrupted him, saying that she had not agreed to his proposal. Only that from now on it was up to her to decide what her sword would serve, and she would no longer hesitate. She turned to the Holy Ball Azrael, asking it to grant her its power. The sword began to shine, which surprised the guy, and the girl stood proudly, holding the sword in her hands. The boy realized that this fire was not at all like Raphael's unbridled flame, because the light of the purifying flame gently enveloped the sword. The golem's mouth opened again. Shastel immediately ran into battle. Zagan tried to stop her, because she did not have blessed armor, but she only repeated that she would become his blade. The girl deftly cut the beam that came from the golem's head. Everyone was surprised that the beam was spreading. The girl said that now it was his turn. Zagan smiled smugly, and she thought that she was too self-confident, but they ran forward. The boy found himself next to the golem and swung his arm to strike, but the golem opened its hand, so the boy became embarrassed. Black smoke began to surround the guy. Stones were flying everywhere in different directions. He realized that the black smoke was the true form of this creature. Even if its stone body was destroyed, it would be able to reassemble. The girl shouted at him not to hesitate and immediately rushed into battle. The guy was surprised at how she crushed the stones. Small stones were falling from the sky. He laughed and realized that if she had used this at their first meeting, he would have disappeared already. The guy immediately summoned a magic circle, and he said that he should turn into ashes, and he also called upon the heavenly flame. Zagan put the magic circle to his heart. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Chastel noticed it and realized that he hadn't succeeded. The guy also confirmed it. The guy's fist remained unharmed, and the golem took the form of black smoke. He said that he was finished, and the golem crumbled into pieces. The girl did not understand what it was. Zagan only said that she had seen his spell, Heavenly Scales. The sigil selects the surrounding mana and serves as a shield, infinitely strengthening itself, and he simply used this mana differently. The girl asked again, surprised. He made it so that when absorbed, the mana did not go to strengthen the sigil, but burn the chimera from the inside. Burning mana gives the flame a black color. Heavenly Scales and Heavenly Flames are two opposites born from the same idea. Magic against holy balls, magic against demons. But these abilities were still unreliable. He needed to work on their effectiveness, otherwise they would be useless against real demons. The girl noted that he really was a terrible magician. But Zagan praised the girl, saying that she had done well too. Chastel was very surprised by his words, and he did not understand the reason for her surprise. The girl explained her surprise by the fact that he called her by name for the first time. The guy asked for forgiveness. The girl was surprised again because he apologized. But he only said that she was Nephi's friend, and at least for that reason he had to show her respect. The girl was a little angry. She hadn't come here for Nephi, but because she wanted to fight side by side with him. The boy understood that she meant that the mage and the holy knight were together. The girl confirmed. They looked at each other with a smile. Foal called Zagan. She was sitting next to Raphael's body, and he was saying that he had the chance to see the fastest blade in action in the hands of a holy knight. Zagan asked him to talk less, because he did not know how to use healing magic. He turned to the girl, saying that she could claim otherwise, but she was doing exactly what a representative of this union should do. His supporters would definitely give her the support she needed. Chastel realized that he had called himself Orapus, out of fear that no one would trust him. The man confirmed it, and before disappearing, Orapus wished for him to survive and do everything possible for this union to be born. Therefore, his name is worthy of leading them. Zagan was interested in why he destroyed so many mages. He had some kind of score to settle with them, but Raphael only said that he destroyed them because he wanted to. For some reason, they attacked him themselves. Everyone was very surprised. He himself did not know why, because he tried to behave as delicately as possible. He even smiled, trying to show that he came in peace. But the magicians did not listen to him and immediately attacked. And if he is attacked, he fights back. And so it happened that many fell by his hand. Zagan was perplexed because he provoked them in the tavern. Chastel would entail. The girl immediately did not understand why he asked her how many mages she had killed at their first meeting. And he again answered that if she had also destroyed many mages, she would not have been able to represent this union. Well, she replied that their number was not worth bragging about. So he believed in her. Zagan clenched his fist. He was angry and wanted to know if he knew what he looked like. After all, he would definitely be mistaken for an enemy with his speech and appearance. Babaros told Zagan to look at himself. Raphael asked Chastel to return to the church. He would deal with the man who tried to get rid of her, and, until then, he simply had no right to disappear. The girl thought he knew who was behind it, and he thought she had already guessed. Raphael turned to Foal and said that although he had promised to give his life, he asked her to wait a little longer. The girl asked her to wait for him. Oribus was for him. The man turned to her and thought. He replied that the dragon was great and to ride on its back and fight after it. It was the best time in his life. He hurried to enter the gate. Zagan asked his daughter if she was sure. She doubted that destroying him would be right. The guy thought that this could be for the best, and, smiling, put his hand on the girl's head. He said it was time to go home because Nephi was waiting for him. The girl looked at him sadly and took his fingers, saying okay. He didn't know if it was right to give up on revenge either. It might flare up again. If not, there would be a reason, and something might shake Foal's resolve again. But let it be so. Nephi stood, smiling, and greeting Zagan, Foal, and Chastel. Everyone stood and smiled. He was home. In difficult times, he would be with Nephi. The knight's castle. The leader said that it meant they couldn't find out where Chastel had gone. The knight said their search was in vain, they had no excuse. But the leader told them not to blame themselves too much. He was also responsible for her safety. He ordered the knights to rest. They obediently began to carry out their orders. The leader walked and addressed Chastel. He didn't understand why she couldn't just disappear for him. After all, mages were evil, as were those who helped them. And if the owner of the holy sword turned to evil, then the next one risked being tainted by it and being unable to bring justice. If it weren't for the stubbornness of the other cardinals, he would have executed her long ago. He couldn't think of it, because as soon as she got the sword, she disappeared. He couldn't understand whether the poison hadn't worked on her. First, there was the knight who couldn't unleash the sword's power, then the one who constantly contradicted him, and now she who didn't want to fight the demon lords. He didn't understand why the sword only chose those who were worthy of it. But if Chastel disappears, the sword will be able to choose a new innocent owner. And this time, he will succeed. He will be able to raise someone who will become the very embodiment of justice. Raphael announced that he was back. Clavel turned and saw Raphael. He also saw the wound and did not understand what happened to him. The man said not to worry about her. He had come to finish something. The cardinal thought he needed help. But for him, it was luck. He didn't know what had happened to him, but he too was afflicted with evil. He wasn't entirely sure what he was trying to achieve. But in any case, his disappearance would only strengthen his influence in the church. The cardinal continued to try to offer help. Raphael swung his sword and the cardinal lost his hand. He said that, unfortunately, he had no desire to apply compresses of poison. The cardinal screamed loudly and fell on his back. The knight told him not to make so much noise. It was the first time he decided to destroy someone himself, so he was a little nervous. They were already old men, and they should not have interfered with the younger generation, much less tried to nip them in the bud. The cardinal shouted for help and did not understand where everyone had gone, because the knights had just been there. He did not understand why he, the messenger of God, was being threatened by someone tainted with evil. Raphael didn't understand why he made such a sad face, because he would disappear from the sword he was possessed with. He should be more cheerful. A cry was heard, and all the birds sitting on the roof flew away. The man said that he would soon follow him, and that they would see each other in hell. Chastel sat on the sofa and realized that Cardinal Clavel was behind everything. Nephi was surprised that she knew about this, and the girl explained that he ardently believed that it was the church that should carry out justice. Zagan didn't understand, because among those who believed in such things, there wasn't a single decent person. Chastel smiled that he was being straightforward. She also thought that the church was going in the wrong direction, but she wasn't so self-confident as to talk about reforming it. That's why the girl decided to go back there. Zagan understood everything and thought about it. He pointed his finger at Chastel and said that the tea was poisoned. The girl was scared, and he immediately said that it was a joke. But if she began to doubt people even a little, it would definitely happen again. Chastel leaned her elbows on the table and shouted that he wasn't ashamed at all because she could have spilled the tea that Nephi had brewed, and Zagan said that she hadn't made it. Foal was sitting behind the sofa smiling. The girl noticed her and was a little embarrassed. She decided to approach her. She was sorry that they never had a chance to chat quietly. The girl reached for Valifer's head, but she moved away. Chastel smiled and said goodbye to everyone. To her surprise, Foal told her to come again. The girl turned around in tears because she called her by name for the first time. Foal only noticed that she was crying again. Although she didn't stay long, Shastel thanked them for everything. She didn't know what would come out of the idea of the Unity faction, but she would do everything in her power to make sure that they all lived more peacefully. She was sure that Raphael would have wanted it too. The man said that it was an excellent speech and put his hand on Shastel's shoulder. After all, she gathered her will into a fist, but if something was bothering her, she would certainly have to contact him. The girl enthusiastically agreed and turned to him in surprise. She screamed in fear. Zagan only asked Raphael if he could get up. The man confirmed, because he was under Orobus's protection. And with her and the elven charms, this wound was a trifle, but he wouldn't be able to grow his arm back, of course. Shastel screamed in surprise. She didn't understand why they were chatting as if nothing had happened. Zagan didn't understand what had happened. The girl answered that she thought Mr. Raphael had disappeared, and the guy just said that it was he who told him that Clavel was finished. He destroyed him, and it was he who brewed the tea. The girl was even more surprised by all the words. She was glad he was alive. Raphael said she was too naive because she wouldn't expect any regrets from the one who would stab her in the back. Zagan explained that it was dangerous to trust those whose true intentions she did not know. They might betray her. Raphael confirmed, saying, "My lord," and Shastel said that she had immediately grasped the essence. Simply, she understood how the man addressed Zagan. The man thought that he had said that Mr. Zagan had taken him as his butler, and so, from today on, you would be resigning as captain of the Holy Knights. The girl screamed even louder. The next morning, after returning to the castle, he felt through the barrier that an exhausted Raphael was standing in front of the entrance. The man said that he had returned as he had promised, and now he could take his life. Zagan said it was up to Fowl to decide. She paused and clenched her fist. She said that let him dedicate his life to Zagan and Nephi. That was her wish. That's how Raphael began working in the castle. Having the holy ball and its owner at hand noticeably sped up his research. And it's not like anyone else was eager to work here. If he hadn't met Nephi, everything would have been like this. He would have been merciless. Fowl wondered if it wasn't hard to do everything with one hand. But Raphael said there was no need to worry about it. The girl thought about it. She quickly made him a hand out of armor. In her hands was a magic circle. She used this armor while living under the guise of Valifer. Foal asked to move his hand, and Raphael's hand moved. He couldn't even imagine that he was now in debt not only to Orobus, but also to his daughter. Now his life was in her hands. The girl only asked him not to exaggerate. Shastel realized that she was the only one leaving. The three of them confirmed it. The girl became scared, but Zagan said that she could return at any time because Nephi and Foal would be glad to see her. Foal asked about herself, and Zagan confirmed. Shastel asked about Zagan. He was surprised and began to think that sometimes it would be nice to sit and have a glass or two together. The girl was visibly happy and ran to the church. Zagan noticed that she was making so much noise. Nephi turned away, and Zagan didn't understand why she was angry. But the girl didn't seem angry. That's why the guy asked her. He extended his hand to her. The girl asked him to guess himself. Zagan realized that she was angry and at the same time waiting for something. He was embarrassed. The guy reached out, put his hand to her cheek, and apologized for leaving her yesterday. The girl's eyes widened in surprise, and he told him that it was unfair. The couple in love stood apart from Raphael and Foal. Meanwhile, the man covered the girl's eyes so that she could not see anything. He told her that it was because it was too early for her to see such things. Nephi grabbed Zagan's hand tightly. Someone was watching them through a magic ball. The stranger told her to laugh as long as she could. Nephilia was damned. It was morning. Nephi and Foal were walking through the city. The girl asked for something sweet. There were barkers advertising their shops on all sides. The girl refused Foal, saying that dinner was coming soon. The merchant said that if they wanted to roast a chicken, he recommended these herbs. The woman said to thank the Lord on their behalf. Nephi thanked the merchant for the herbs. Well, she wanted to eat. She was waiting for dinner. Nephi felt it too and decided that they would go home. The girl turned around and rushed at Nephi, because something had happened. Something fell nearby. Foal realized that they were attacked and it was some kind of spell. A woman's foot stepped onto the road. A voice came from under the cloak, wanting to make sure it was Nephilia. The girl was angry. The stranger in the cloak saw no need to doubt. She began to cast a spell that made Nephi disappear. The girl was shocked, but Full tried to save her with a magic circle, and Nephi was already trying to stop Full. Spears started flying from everywhere. They hit people. And screams were heard everywhere. Even ordinary people were affected. Nephi screamed for her to stop. The fragments stopped. The girl in the cloak was surprised. Nephi stood up proudly. A lot of pierced people were lying on the asphalt. Just a minute ago they were smiling. And this really irritated the girl. She was very angry. New spears flew, but the girl stopped them. Full realized that Nephi had taken control of them. And she realized how strong she was. The girl in the cloak felt sick. Nephi said that she would not leave and pointed spears at her. But the unknown woman had a strong shield. It still shattered. But the girl didn't give up and sent more and more fragments, which Nephi sent back. The unknown woman said that the girl was worthless, but she was still an elf. The girls were surprised by the stranger's words. As it turned out, the girl in the cloak was also an elf. Full didn't understand why her face was familiar. It looks like Nephi's face. The girl stood proudly. She said that the sigil of the Lord was a terrifying power. There was a magic circle on the floor. Voices were heard. People lying on the path did not understand what had happened. Zagan's barrier. Nephi tried to stop the girl and tried to understand who she was. The girl answered that she was she. This is Nephi, only cursed. The girl disappeared, leaving behind a note. The merchant turned to Nephilia. He was afraid that something had happened to her. The others looked around and thought that Nephi had restored it. The girls noticed the letter. It said, "To the demon lord Zagan, from the demon lord Bifrons." Raphael summoned Metatron, drawing his sword. He pointed the sword at Zagan, who activated the magic circle. He realized that the power was not in the blade itself, but in the writing on it. They were so different from the magical symbols that he didn't even know where to begin working on them. It seemed to him that he was hitting the sword with a hammer, making notches that were immediately sealed. And it seemed to him that the blade was like a living creature. Raphael thought that this was close to the truth. He also realized that Zagan had not yet revealed the secret of the holy swords. The boy replied that thanks to the books left by Marchosis, he knew where these symbols came from. It was a divine language. The symbols matched those used by the ancient deities, but with the departure of these beings from their world, the meaning of these inscriptions was lost. And even the church is unable to read them. Raphael said that the sword itself chooses its owner, and sometimes it seems to manifest its will. In addition, this manifestation takes shape depending on the owner, such as Raphael's flame and Chastel's flame. But if the swords really did have a will of their own, did that mean their creators were living beings? But in that case, there should have been traces of their creators. And if so, then it is better to work in this direction than to examine the swords themselves. The country house had two goals. The first is to learn how to destroy demons. The second is to find a way to destroy the seal of the demon lord. He had promised Nephi a quiet life, and the demons, and the lords themselves, would surely cause them trouble. If he could not find a way to destroy the seals, he would not be able to get rid of their owners. He thought he could find out why the seal symbols and the writing on the blades were so similar, that he could get to the bottom of it, but suddenly, Zagan was scared. Raphael didn't understand what had happened. The guy explained that the barrier in Kyanita worked, and something happened near Nephi and Full. Zagan immediately ran to the exit, and the girls were already standing there. The guy was very worried. Full wanted to tell, but Nephi squeezed her hand. The girl became noticeably sadder, and so did Full. She explained that nothing terrible had happened. Zagan and Raphael exchanged glances. The guy asked his daughter again, and she confirmed. Zagan calmed down and said that Raphael was just about to squeeze the juice, and he asked the girls to help him. They left. Zagan and Nephi were left alone. No one could hear them. Nephi started to apologize. The guy thought that it was so hard for her to talk about it. He was ready to destroy the one who did this to Nephi. But if she couldn't talk about it, then she needed to calm her down and not bring up the topic until she was ready to tell him everything. He didn't understand how to do it, because when he wasn't in the mood, she put her head on his lap. He thought about how to behave in such a situation. The girl tried to explain, but Zagan had an idea to take her to a place where there would be atmosphere. The guy picked her up. The girl was shocked. He carried her and thought that she was so light, so soft, and smelled so nice. They were both embarrassed. Zagan brought her to the library because it was cozy and pleasant. He couldn't put her on his lap there, so he just sat at the table with her. She didn't understand what he was doing, and he didn't know either because dinner wasn't soon and he wanted to finish reading something. He realized that he had made a big mistake somewhere. Nephi remembered the letter. She gave it to Zagan, saying that she had been given something when she was in Kyanida. He asked her to read it for him. In the letter, the highly respected demon lord Zagan, in order to strengthen our relations, he invites him, a new comrade, to an evening ball. This invitation extended to all the inhabitants of his castle, and also to Madame Shasta Loquist, eagerly awaiting his consent. Demon Lord Bifrons. Zagan thought that it was he who dared to raise his hand against Nephi because they know about Shastal, and even that Foal lives with them, which means they have been followed for some time. The girl thought he would agree. He replied that he had received a personal invitation from the Lord. He had no reason to refuse. In any case, he would have to face him, and this was a good opportunity to compare their strengths. The girl became sad. He remembered that she had experienced something terrible, so all this frightened her, but he did not understand how to calm her down. Suddenly, he remembered that Nephi often hugged Foal and decided to do the same. The girl was very shocked by what was happening. Zagan realized that this was a bad idea, and besides, she was hitting him with her ear. The guy cleared his throat awkwardly. He didn't care if it was the Lord or anyone else. If he dared to upset her, he wasn't going to sit idly by. He was going to give him a good thrashing. The girl realized that he had guessed everything. Zagan confirmed, but admitted that he had not guessed everything. He only saw that she was depressed. Nephi apologized again and said she wasn't ready to talk about it. Zagan understood and told her to tell him when she wanted. The girl exhaled and thanked him. She felt much calmer. He asked to put her down because it was embarrassing. But he refused because there was still time before dinner and he wanted to read. The girl became even more embarrassed. Suddenly, she noticed the sword and read the inscription on it. She assumed that Metatron was the name of the blade. The guy looked at her sharply and realized that she could read these symbols. The girl confirmed it. She didn't understand the meaning of the written word, but she knew how to read it. Zagan realized that this language was somehow connected to the elves or another race that had contact with them. It could lead them to important discoveries. Barbaros held the macaroni in his hands and was surprised that Zagan had been invited to the Demon Lord's evening ball. It seemed to him that this whole story smelled bad. He asked him to listen and gave 80 to 90% that it was a trap. Zagan said that 80 was too little. There was a trap there 100%. Barbaros was embarrassed. Foal, who was sitting on his hands, turned to the guy. She said that his assistant was not very smart and there was no need to be so rude to him. The guy understood this and apologized. Barbaros angrily told them to stop making fun of him. Foal said that he was a worthless magician who came for treats. She was 3 times older than him. Barbaros did not understand what she thought of herself. Zagan asked him to watch his language. He could destroy him. He wondered why he had come. Barbaros grinned and said that yesterday an elf in Kyanida was attacked by a magician. So he thought he would want to know something. Zagan also grinned, thus saying, "Spill it." He was all ears, and if the information was useful, he would let him choose the reward. Barbaros was tempted by the offer. He was stopped by Foal with a magic circle. Zagan understood that she didn't like his face, but that was no reason to destroy it. Meanwhile, Barbaros didn't understand what was wrong with his face, seeing that she again didn't want him to hear about yesterday. Nephi sat tensely. Zagan stroked Foal's head and said he would wait until Nephi told him herself and asked her not to be angry. Valifer was surprised that he had read her thoughts, and Zagan apologized to Barbaros, because this time he wanted to do without his story. He asked him again, and whether he would definitely not regret it if he did not approach the situation seriously. But Zagan did not care. Barbaros still tried to continue. At this point, Foal couldn't stand it any longer, saying that his henchman had loosened his tongue and needed to be destroyed. Barbaros scolded the girl, thinking that she didn't value human life. After such a squabble, they sat in silence. Zagan ate macaroni and said that today sweets were tastier than usual. Foal said that Nephi was in a good mood this morning and did not understand what he did to her. The girl blushed. She couldn't find a place for herself under the gaze of the gentleman. Zagan thought it was cute because he thought he had made a lot of mistakes yesterday. He thought he had managed to cheer her up. Valifer said it was time to free Zagan's lap for Nephi, but she wasn't exactly eager to sit on it. Zagan looked at her and suggested that she sit down. This made the girl even more embarrassed. She was about to get up, saying that it was mean, but she saw Barbaros's strange look and sat back down. The guy thought that she would have sat down if not for Barbaros. He dreamed that he would leave. Zagan announced that it was time to get ready for the ball. Barbaros thought that he had decided to dress up for the ball, but the guy reminded him that Shasta was mentioned in the invitation. She could be drawn into the story, and it was better for her to know it in advance. Barbaros remembered the girl and did not understand how much longer he would have to look after her. A whole month had passed, and Barbaros was still protecting her. Zagan realized that they hadn't discussed how long he would have to do this. He thought about it and said that he didn't remember him mentioning a time limit. Barbaros thought the guy was generous, but it turned out to be a complete scam, and he didn't understand why she was invited at all. Zagan replied that everyone who was connected to him was invited. He was surprised and happy, because it meant that he was also invited. But his happiness was immediately cut short by Zagan's words that he was not invited. Barbaros immediately hung on him, and did not understand why he was not invited. But the guy didn't know and he didn't care. Barbaros was upset, and Zagan only said that he was nothing but a headache. But suddenly, the sad guy realized something. The castle would be empty without all its inhabitants, and he could look after it. After all, it was very imprudent. Otherwise, the castle would be under surveillance. Foal still proposed to destroy it, but Zagan supported his idea. Barbaros was immediately happy, saying that he was being spoiled too much. Foal said that he would rob the entire castle, and Barbaros said that Zagan would decide for himself. But he said that if someone outside tried to take something out of the castle, then a fitting punishment awaited him. Barbaros began to curse. He almost said goodbye to his life when he tried to take out the grimoire. He was attacked by demonic dogs of the void. Zagan was surprised that he was still alive, and he did not understand why this disappointed him. Foal and Zagan exchanged glances, and the guy told her not to worry. He made sure it didn't work on her and Raphael. The girl praised him, but he only said that these were the most ordinary measures. Barbaros said that it was not true. Even magic was difficult to learn. Zagan could not call himself a demon lord if he could not even cast such a spell. He would not allow his magic to harm Nephi. Barbaros decided to say one last thing. He wasn't sure if it was right to keep silent about yesterday. The girl nodded, and the magician laughed. Realizing that he had wasted his time, it seemed stupid to him. He waved his hand and disappeared. Nephi said that Lord Barbaros was kind in his own way. Zagan was surprised, because she had heard that they had discussed his destruction. The girl thought that they were friends, but the boy did not consider him a friend. And again, he remembered the ball at the Demon Lord's. He was curious about what they had in store for him. Nephi wondered who that girl was. She had white hair like all the damned children like her. Their faces were similar too, but her eyes were full of hatred. The angel thought something was wrong, but Nephi said she was just thinking about something. The girl thought it was about the mage who was destroying everything around her and looked like her. Her face gave her away. The girl thought it was her old friend, but it was not so. Nephi had a bad feeling about her. She was afraid of her incredible strength, and the words she spoke were menacing. They didn't resemble magic in structure, but rather witchcraft. But it wasn't just that. She understood their meaning. It was only because of that he was able to gain control of her spell and use it. But after their meeting, she felt that something began to change in her. She did not want to become like her. If someday she would hate something with all her soul, and with her power she would be able to destroy people without a twinge. If she became like that, would Zagan love her? The girl was only worried about that. She immediately dismissed these thoughts because of course he would. If she clung to him, she was sure he would not abandon her. And yet it was wrong. The angel girl said that she would never be the same. But if something was bothering her, she should definitely come to her, because her sister would cheer her up in the blink of an eye. But if you put problems on other people's shoulders, Nephi will hate herself. She is with Zagan because she wants to be his support, but she cannot cling to him like a parasite. The girl was surprised and asked her to listen. After all, it meant not clinging, but relying on another person. Nephi asked again, and the girl gave her an example. If she noticed that Zagan was being weighed down by something, like she was now, what would she do? She said that if that happened, she would try to ease his burden and support him. That was what the girl had told her. It wouldn't burden her, and she wouldn't hate him. Nephi said the word again, rely. In her homeland, she was always alone, an outcast. She had already forgotten what it meant to rely on others. Because as long as she does not stand still and moves forward with him, she will not be some kind of parasite and will not just cling to him. The girl added that sometimes it's very sad when no one even counts on you. Nephi became serious and thanked Manuela. She also decided that she needed to have a proper talk with Mr. Zagan. Manuela was inspired, but if she suddenly decides to cry, she is always happy to do so. She has so much advice on underwear. Nephi smiled and, having thanked him, declined. And then the largest lake, Sfranchida. Pholus was very impressed by its size. She saw the ship for the first time and realized how much it was rocking. The girl was very happy. Zagan asked her if she enjoyed their trip. She agreed. Phol drew Zagan's attention to Nephi's beautiful dress and waited for his opinion. He blushed and the dress was as beautiful as she was. Nephi was very embarrassed. She seemed very worried about something when she went to buy the dress. But it seems that everything is fine now. Zagan asked Raphael how the armor fits. Veilfar. He thought it might be too tight. But the man replied that, on the contrary, she was much more practical than his consecrated armor. Raphael's face was known among the mages, so they dressed him in the old armor of Phol. The creation of the consecrated armor is a secret that is guarded even within the church. Raphael was surprised that he was able to turn the armor of the Phantom into it, and the guy just replied that it was entirely Nephilia's merit. Because on his consecrated armor, as on the holy swords, symbols are used, and their source of power is most likely a celestial language. But Nephi was able to read them, so the idea came to him that if they repeated the symbols from the consecrated armor, then their power would also manifest along with them. Raphael was very surprised by this, and Nephi said that they were different from the language spoken in her village, but she had definitely seen them somewhere before, but could only read them. Zagan said that when he tried to imbue the symbols with magic, it didn't work. There was some reason why only someone who could read the symbols could use them, and it was probably an elf or someone from a race close to them working with the church. Raphael thought that she could make holy swords too, but she denied it. They managed to reproduce their power, but only partially. They were copies that could not compare to the originals. Certain conditions were necessary for their creation. Otherwise, the church would have long ago put their production on stream. In addition, the symbols on the seal of the ruler, although similar to the heavenly language, Nephi could not read them. There is some connection. Zagan hoped that in the future he would be able to count on his support as well. Raphael cheerfully supported him. Chastel suddenly appeared, apologizing for interrupting them. She thought the ball was not taking place here, but Zagan confirmed that this was the place. She didn't understand why such eerie music was playing. He replied that the guests didn't want their conversation to reach strangers' ears. The host of the ball was trying for them. Chastel noted that the musicians themselves were not alive. The girl was already irritated, because he had sent her an invitation to the ball, but he himself did not know what kind of meeting it was, and he answered that it was a trade meeting for magicians. Chastel had already screamed because she did not understand why he had not warned her in advance. She thought that the evening ball should resemble a normal party, and she dressed with this in mind. Nephi said that Chastel looked very good in the dress she was wearing, and the girl in turn complimented Nephi's dress. But that was not the point. Zagan didn't want to believe that she had come here unarmed. Chastel said that her sword was left in the lobby. She didn't think it would be okay to dance in the armor of a holy knight. Everyone present turned sharply in their direction. The cloaked mages began to talk among themselves about her mention of the knights. One of them remembered that she was the only woman among the captains of the order. Someone thought that she had been sent to a dinner party for the Lord. Someone thought that it was impudence. Someone suggested that she be destroyed altogether. Chastel began to feel uneasy. Zagan understood that they were a lot of trouble, and he told her to follow him. They walked through a room with a large number of guests. Chastel did not understand why he was walking through the crowd, and Zagan wanted to create an impression. The song March of the Demon Lord started playing, but everyone was looking at Zagan, realizing that it was him. They thought that he was the new Dragon Lord. Someone noticed that a ghost was following him. There was a rumor that it had disappeared, which meant that Zagan had subdued it. They noticed the horns on full and realized that it was a young dragon. Someone heard that Zagan got her when he killed the mage hunter Raphael. Elf entered their conversation. Someone warned that she was Zagan's bride and they had to be careful with her. Someone else heard that Purgatory was cut into 8 pieces in an attempt to harm her. Someone must have spoken of the 7-day torture he was subjected to. Heard that he was only able to survive by swearing allegiance to Zagan. They thought that since he could gather such a pack, he had also subdued the Maiden of the Holy Sword. But Shastel wanted to intervene because she did not remember her becoming his henchman. Zagan told her that if people say so, it is true. If not, they would destroy her. The girl jumped up to him. People whispered and assumed that she was his concubine. Shastel was about to protest when Foal told her to be quiet, hitting her on the back of her dress. The whole pack climbed onto the bridge. Shastel held tightly to Zagan, who asked her to let go of him. But the girl said that he had misunderstood her because she could not unclasp her hands. Nephi offered her help. Shastel immediately began to apologize to her. She was in complete shock. Zagan blushed, as did Nephi. After all, he had never seen her like this before, and was even glad. And now, Zagan went beyond the fence of the bridge and went out into the crowd. He started making a speech. He thought they had all heard of him and introduced himself again. And he was the new Demon Lord. He also mentioned the host of the evening, who had not yet arrived. But Zagan wanted them to have a great time. All the people with glasses raised them up as a sign of respect. Zagan doubted that there was anyone here foolish enough to risk angering him. So if Shastel was careful, she would be safe. The girl thought he was implying that she was clumsy. Nephi offered to talk to her and she would calm down. Shastel thanked her because she was always kind to her. But at the same moment, Foal shamed her for being a crybaby. Shastel asked Nephi if she had ever been on a ship, but the girl told her that it was the first time for her because she grew up in the mountains. Zagan said that technically it had happened. As a boy, he was trying to get food and fell into a box, and someone nailed it shut and carried it to the ship. He had food, but he almost suffocated. And when he was discovered, they scolded him. Nephi joined the conversation by telling how she once climbed into the basement and found some honey there, but was locked in and almost froze to death. Zagan asked if she could identify those who did this. Nephi thanked him, but thought that it was not worth resurrecting someone for the sake of revenge. The guy smiled. She was kind. The girl said that he himself did not take revenge on those who scolded him. He replied that the stolen fruit was delicious. The girl confirmed, remembering that the honey was delicious. Foal understood that they had been through a lot, but Shastel was more concerned that the church was leading its flock in the right direction. The girl explained that Cardinal Clavel's disappearance a month ago had been declared an accident. The 3 knights had tried to cover up all traces. The Unity faction already knew that Raphael was seeking a meeting with the Cardinal, but there were no questions from their side. Raphael said that the main goal of the Unity faction was to avoid unnecessary conflicts with the mages. They didn't know when the demons would return. They would figure that out when Mr. Zagan got stronger. The boy realized that they were fine with it as long as she got along with him. Shastel was surprised. Zagan replied that if someone was poisoned, even he would be worried. The girl thought he was worried about her, and the guy thought he was wrong. And he explained that he meant that he didn't want her to disappear, because he was his friend, but she thought about love. The girl misunderstood him, and now he didn't know what to say. But he didn't care. He didn't care what was on other people's minds, as long as it didn't bother him and Nephi. And Shastel wasn't so stupid as not to feel the difference. But he thought she wanted to hide it herself. Here the girl asked Zagan about his specific goal. She repeated that she was not so weak as to be a burden, so she wanted him to be able to trust her. Zagan and Nephi were surprised by her words. After all, he had already saved her more than once, and she wanted to repay him. She didn't care if it was in the form of an alliance or something else, but she wanted to maintain this relationship. The boy clenched his fist. He wasn't sure he understood what trust was. He hadn't felt it for a long time. The girl was surprised, thinking that she and Nephi completely trusted each other. He may not realize it, but he trusted Nephi. Zagan realized that it was true. It was thanks to her that he understood what it meant to heal someone else's heart. He didn't trust Raphael in full, but he doubted that he could rely on Chastel. Nephi thought and rubbed the collar of her dress. She turned to Zagan. She said she had something to tell. Her heart was pounding. Everyone turned around. There were boxes behind them. There was a knock coming from them. Foal tried to understand what was there, and Chastel thought it was a stowaway. Here they remembered the story recently told by Zagan, and everyone immediately had lunch to open the box, because suddenly a homeless child fell in there. Raphael assumed that there might be a dangerous animal there, and asked to let him open it. When they opened the box, they were surprised. There was a boy inside who thought he was going to suffocate. He thanked them very much, because he himself would never have opened it. He decided that now he was indebted to them for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Zagan wanted to know what Chastel wanted to talk to him about, and she, in turn, said that it was not so important now. The guy got angry and looked at the boy because he appeared right when Nephi wanted to tell something. The boy apologized very much. He did not want to interrupt their conversation. Nephi asked Zagan to calm down and asked if the boy was okay. He said he had a few scratches. The girl said she could heal them, but she also wanted to know how he got there. The boy introduced himself. His name was Nero, and he was a novice magician, so he could deal with the scratch himself, but then his magic circle flared up. Raphael asked if the boy was okay, but he just wanted to show off, and in fact, he had no abilities. Even after a year of training, he still could not learn magic. His eyes lit up, and he begged the Lord on his knees to take him as a student. After all, that was why he had snuck on board. The boy stood there in amazement, but the boy continued that he understood how impudent it was on his part, but he continued to ask. He could only ask him, but Zagan did not feel even a drop of magical power from him. He understood everything and said that he had no time for his students now. The boy began to run around him, begging him to take him, and the student, he could carry his things and run errands, whatever he wanted. He offered to wash his shoes with his tongue. Nephi asked him to think about the request, but he said there was no need. The girl looked at the boy who was begging, and someone was hovering over her ear, laughing and telling her that she had a good heart. She immediately turned around, and the mage flew up, giving her the instruction that you shouldn't trust mages. After all, they are all liars. Zagan looked at her, and this mage introduced herself. This was the temptress Gamori. She wanted to greet the Lord personally. The guy realized that she was one of the candidates. The woman smiled, and Foal stood looking at her in surprise. Zagan thought that she wanted something from his daughter, but Gamori replied that she was trying to figure out whether the miraculous butterflies surrounding the ruler had been kidnapped or not. The woman realized that it seemed that she had worried in vain. The guy said that if she wanted to show concern, she should take care of Chastel instead. The woman said that she didn't like the Holy Knights, and didn't care what happened to her. Someone appeared behind Gamori and said that it was impolite to say such things. There stood a man with a lion's head. Zagan realized that it was a werewolf lion, and he had seen it at the auction. It was the Black Blade of Chimaris. He lifted Gamori by her cloak and apologized to Zagan, for the lady's lips were poisonous, but her heart was kind. After all, seeing children of rare races like elves and dragons near him, she was worried that a terrible fate had befallen them. Chimaris asked to forgive her. The woman asked to be let go because she had said nothing to ask for forgiveness. Zagan thought that the two of them knew each other. The werewolf confirmed it, and he may look scary, but he's a coward at heart, so he relies heavily on Mrs. Gamori. They began to imagine the old woman carrying a werewolf on her back. The woman said that she simply loved animals, and why else would she help him? Chimaris thought that now was not the best time to confess. The woman asked again. Zagan was surprised at this time that they were candidates for the position of ruler, and if they were elected, the world would become safer. The werewolf asked the boy to be careful, because he thought he was kind. He was sure that there would be those who would want to take advantage of this. The lion looked at the trembling boy. Zagan replied that kind was not the best word to describe the demon lord. Chimaris explained that kindness often referred to the ability to feel sympathy, and he thought that he felt this way towards his followers. Zagan was shocked by the fact that the werewolf was not at all embarrassed by what he was saying. And what's more, so honestly, but the boy thanked the werewolf for the warning. Kimaris hurried away. Chasta was amazed that there were other good magicians besides Zagan, and the boy thought that he showed up only to protect Gamori. He thought that since mages couldn't live normal lives, they would all end up rotting from the inside, just like him. But it seemed that some didn't cast aside their humanity. Nephi sat on the mast, watching everyone. It was time to begin the show. Zagan saw the full moon. It seemed to him that when he and Nephi first met, there was a crescent moon in the sky. The guy looked at the girl who was admiring the sky. He conjured a chair, saying that since they were done with all the troubles, Nephi should sit down. The girl said that it would be better if she stood. Then he pointed the chastel, and looking in the fee, he offered her to sit down. The girl sat down immediately. Full wanted something tasty, and Raphael decided to leave with Zagan's permission. He allowed it. The man grabbed Full, and she wanted to stay here a little longer. And Raphael said that it was time for her to learn to catch the atmosphere. Otherwise, the master would give her a thrashing. The girl told him that he was the last person she wanted to hear about capturing the atmosphere. Zagan blushed, but invited Nephi to sit closer, pointing to his knees. The girl told him that it was terribly shameful to do such a thing here, and he understood that too. Nephi said he embarrassed her too often. He told her he just saw a new side of her every time. The girl became even more embarrassed, saying that it was not fair, and Zagan looked at her. The girl's ear began to tremble. The guy poked it to make it stop. The girl screamed. He immediately began to apologize, because he was simply curious. Nephi thought that he was interested in her ears, and Zagan replied that this was Nephi's strongest part. She became even more embarrassed, but said that if he liked it, then she didn't mind. Zagan was shocked that he really could. He sat down opposite her and said that he would touch them now. Nephi agreed. The guy tipped the girl's ear. He realized that they were so soft. He did not feel the pulsation of the arteries. But the more nervous she became, the harder her ears became. The girl put the bone of her finger in her mouth out of embarrassment. Zagan thought she was tickling, although it looked more like he was doing something terribly indecent, but he continued to stroke her ears. The girl raised her head, and the guy immediately began to apologize, thinking that he had hurt her. But as it turned out, she was simply touched for the first time for them, and she was embarrassed. They both hung their heads in great embarrassment, and all the people looked at them. Everyone had their own emotions. The boy and the girl immediately jumped away from each other and were silent. Nephi said that next time they would make sure that they were alone. Zagan was shocked that he would be able to touch them again, and he realized that she wasn't disgusted. He didn't think he could hold back if she did it again. Suddenly, he realized that he hadn't told her that he liked her, and he needed to keep things in order. Someone came up from behind, surprised by their actions. It was the boy from the box who asked permission to pour him a drink. But Zagan told him to get out of sight. The boy only wanted to serve Lord Zagan and his companions. He would not even be afraid if Zagan considered him his servant. Nephi was embarrassed and stepped forward. She decided to tell about the incident. Zagan, reminded that this conversation was interrupted by a boy. Nephi continued that recently, and Kianita, a girl, attacked her. She did not know whether she obeyed the Lord of Demons or not, but it was clearly not just a mage. Without finishing speaking, fog appeared on the ship. The girl didn't understand what was happening, because she didn't even see anything. Nephi thought the ship was under attack, and Zagan was looking for his beloved. The girl couldn't make a sound, and she couldn't move either. The fog began to clear, and the boy ran up to her. He thought something had happened to her. Nephi saw that he could move and realized that she was the only one being held down. If it had been a simple spell, Zagan's magic would have absorbed it. The boy did not understand what was happening, but he would do anything to protect Nephi. The girl realized that this was a power that he could not absorb, something like witchcraft. She understood whose handiwork this was. Zagan was worried about the girl, and she was glad that he was safe. But before him was another Nephi who did not understand what had happened. Nero and Nephi were shocked that there were now two Nephi. The boy did not understand how this was possible, and he could not get through. He realized that they did not see or hear them. Another said that she was surrounded by some kind of fog, and she was very scared. Nephi realized who it was. She repeated everything after her, and even pressed herself against Zagan like her. The guy pushed the girl away, telling her to stand behind and it would look like they were being attacked. The boy realized that he considered that Nephi to be real, and it turned out that next to him was a copy. The real one started screaming towards Zagan that it wasn't her and she wanted him to understand it, but she couldn't even lift a finger. Meanwhile, the other one said that she was cold and scared. She asked to hug her. The real Nephi started crying. She didn't want to see this. Zagan grabbed the other one by the cheeks and realized that she was not his Nephi. For someone he was seeing for the first time, she was clinging too tightly to him. The double was angry. All the people were surprised by what was happening. The girl began to turn into herself and did not understand how he understood. Zagan did not understand what she was talking about. It dawned on him that she was trying to pass herself off as Nephi. The other was surprised. He began to say that the girl did not even try to pretend to be her, because they were similar only in appearance and, of course, he was able to distinguish them. She realized that he had figured her out, and the guy continued that he didn't see the boy who was always with them. Zagan noticed something and raised his hand to strike, saying that they had enough of hiding. He broke the dome that was hiding both of them, and both prisoners were happy and surprised at the same time. The boy tried to explain that he was trying to protect Mrs. Nephi, but the boy thought he was still trying to trick him. The boy screamed. There was a loud explosion. The ship began to sink. Zagan hugged Nephi, standing on the sinking ship. The guy apologized to her, thinking that he had scared her, but the girl started crying because he recognized her. Zagan thought she was just glad she was finally safe. Someone started laughing because he was as merciless as always, and he was confident in his acting. Suddenly, the ship returned to its normal state, and the stranger did not understand at what moment he understood. Zagan replied sarcastically that he really thought that some boy without magic could get into the Lord's ball, which was well guarded. The stranger realized that there was something wrong with his legend, because he really had screwed up with it. The stranger decided to introduce himself. He was the demon lord Bifrons, and on this wonderful evening, he welcomes them on board his ship.